Hello and welcome to the Unfazed Review Podcast. I'm Ben.
And I'm Emmett.
And today we are joined by the amazing Scott Leva. He is an Academy Award winning stuntman, stunt coordinator, and second unit director. So much to talk about. Like, you, sir, are an icon. So happy to have you on here. Like, seriously, we got an Academy Award winner on the podcast. It's amazing. So I guess we'll just kick it off for everybody. Kind of give us a little rundown on how you got into being a stuntman and a stunt coordinator.
The pat answer usually is I fell into it.
Nice. Classic.
I did a lot of stage combat and gymnastics and stuff in high school and college, and I was pursuing the acting in New York. I was in New York City, and I was getting acting gigs. And one of the gyms I worked at, Sutton's Gym, a lot of the stunt guys went in there, and I would meet them. And
we turn them up a little bit? Sorry, Scott, go ahead.
No, that's okay. One thing sort of led to another, and meeting the stunt people, I sort of segued into stunt work, which I always considered was like my side job instead of waiting tables. And later down the road, it became my full-time occupation.
That's amazing. What was the I did look through your IMDb and it's unreal. It is absolutely unreal. But what was your first official big, like, wow, I'm in the movies, like, project that you worked on? I think I know what it is, but I want to hear it from you.
Gee, that's hard to say. One of the first features I worked on was Superman, and it was cool being on the set, but I didn't really do any big stunts. I sort of just helped. I was kind of like this New York stunt coordinator liked me, took a liking to me, and we did a couple of scenes that I guess ended up being in the DVD cut.
Oh, cool.
That they cut out of the original Superman. When Lois first suspects Clark of being Superman, she jumps out of a window.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think he either uses his super breath or his heat vision and does something with a canopy over a fruit stand and catches her.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. I think it does. I think he uses his breath.
Yeah.
Slow down.
Super breath. I don't remember. I just know that we rigged that up. Interesting enough, the stunt girl, if I remember correctly, was also the actress that was in the Amazing Spider-Man TV series with Nicholas Hammond.
Oh, that is very cool. That is amazing. I guess one of the big things that I'm sure, everyone is excited to hear about, that I want to talk to you about, is you being Spider-Man. You're Peter Parker, you were Spider-Man. And so originally, for those audience members who don't know, there was going to be a Canon Films, and was it 1985 Canon film?
Earlier than that, it started out in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I had been with trying to get in on the Spider-Man movies for years. And when I finally heard that Canon had got the movie rights, I started really politicking to see if I could get in. That, along with my background with Marvel and so forth. Real quick question: the podcast here you do,
Yes.
where do you air it?
YouTube. We air it on YouTube.
YouTube.
Yes.
There's a couple of things I'm doing, but I haven't yet announced them officially.
Okay.
So
I mean, if anything you want to drop on the pod, you're more than welcome. But
yeah,
no pressure, of course.
It's early. I wrote a book.
Oh, very exciting.
The book is called "I Am," and the "Am" is crossed out, was Spider-Man.
Oh, that's cool.
And it talks about my history growing up, Army brat, moving around, schools, my relationship. First comic book I ever read, Spider-Man number 39.
Wow.
Became a huge fan, related to Peter Parker like we all did. Huge fan. And little things that kind of related to, because I was a new kid all the time. We moved every 6 months to a year.
Okay. You said you're an Army brat?
Oh, yeah. We'd move more than we had to. I didn't know that.
Okay.
There were a lot of families that didn't. And then it talks about my relationship at Marvel, getting to meet Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, John Romita. It talks about my movies and stunt work, working with people like Steven Spielberg and Clint Eastwood and Francis Ford Coppola, winning an Academy Award and so on. But it all kind of back centers around Spider-Man. So there's a bit of a history because I was always a fan. And long story short, I mean, even when I was in high school and playing around, we had a media center. And I decided to do kind of a takeoff of the George Reeves Superman as a class project. And so with the help of my father, we made a really decent Superman costume, and I did this little thing, and I would use flying clips from the George Reeves thing. So it'd be George flying and me leaping through the window.
That's cool.
And then I wanted to do a Spider-Man one, and by the time we finished the costume, the class was over. So I never actually got to do that, but I did have fun with the suit at Halloween and stuff, and
And I did see later on you were Dean Cain's stunt double, so you were Superman as well.
Yeah, working on the first Superman and seeing Chris, I mean, I was a Superman fan. Not big. I mean, DC Comics, you can always get people that argue, oh, DC's better, Marvel's better. Marvel related to me because it was based in the real world. It
Yeah,
was New York, it was San Francisco, it was wherever they decided it was, but it wasn't Gotham City or Metropolis.
yeah,
Um, and so Superman always had more of a fictional tone, and the comics didn't always have a continuation story. Like what happened last issue would always be, like, you know, Superman's in deadly danger because Lois got X-ray vision with kryptonite, and you go, and that had nothing to do with the previous issue.
yeah.
Um, and Marvel also had that whole thing to where not only did they have New York City, but while Spider-Man is swinging by, you suddenly see Thor flying overhead.
Yeah,
So they started to integrate the universe, which of course later DC did as well. Um, so I'd always had more of an affinity towards loving the Marvel universe.
that's very appropriate. How did
But
you how
go
did
ahead.
you originally get involved with Marvel? Because you said you had had some ties to Marvel before you were cast as Peter Parker. How did that all come about? Like, what was the the
Had
moment?
a friend that owned a comic store in Gaithersburg, Maryland. I was going to high school and then went to college,
Mhm.
and his comic store wasn't doing well. So I suggested maybe he should get a superhero appearance. I heard that they could do that. And he thought that was a great idea, but he didn't know how to do it. So I called up Marvel Comics in New York, and they put me in touch with promotions, which was Nancy Allen, I think, no relation to the actress,
Okay.
was the head of it. And there was Barbara Mayer, and I forget the other woman's name. There was Pam Rudd, I think, came in later. But I told them what we wanted to do. They said it's $1,000 a day, and you supply airline and hotel and per diem and so forth. And I said, well, what if you had a local Spider-Man? And they said, who? I said, well, me. They said, oh, well, you'd have to come to New York. We'd have to meet you. You'd have to do an audition. Next week, we're having a orientation with all the people that are already playing Marvel superheroes. And there were a few of them. There was Hulk and Captain America, Spider-Man. I'm trying to think what started, who else might have been, because then they started to kind of span out a bit.
Yeah.
So I said, sure. And I got on the plane, and, it's like 35-minute flight from Washington, D.C. to New York. I got there, took a cab to 575 Madison Avenue, went up, introduced myself. Um, she had me put on the costume. The first thing she said to me is, well, you're a little short. I'm 5'10", 165 pounds. And everything I read in the comic books, Spider-Man was 5'10",
About to
100.
say, yeah.
You seem like, yeah, you're
Yeah.
you're Spider-Man. Yeah.
But I was dead on. Gymnastics built, except I did one thing most gymnasts don't do is I work my legs.
Hmm.
You ever see really good gymnasts, you'll see this huge upper body and these skinny little legs.
Mm.
So I was very much in proportion. So I put on the suit, and I kind of came in very Steve Ditko-ish in style and jumped on the table and flipped off and did all these
Cool.
real little cool things. And she said, okay, that's great. And I met the other Spider-Men and Captain Americas and so forth at the orientation. And I was the shortest one. Most of them were 6'1", very thin, kind of like Electric Company thin. And I always thought, well, Spider-Man's a little more buff, isn't he? But
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Also, the Hulk costume was more of a balloon. You get in it, it kind of blows up. So that changed to a molded suit, and that changed to more of a material sewn suit down the road.
Yeah.
So we sit in the meeting, and you're supposed to introduce yourself. Hi, I'm so and so, and the character you play. And when they came to me, and I go, I'm Scott Leva, and I look over at Nancy and she goes, Spider-Man. I go, well, Spider-Man. So I figured, okay, I must be hired. So that was kind of my first segue in. I was still living in Washington. It was probably about 6 months before I got my first Marvel appearance, which was at a mall in Wilmington, Delaware. which
Oh,
was fun.
wow.
I drove to it.
Do you remember the name of the mall?
I do not. I get a bunch of notifications from people on Instagram right now that say, were you ever at this mall? Were you ever at this laundromat? And I
Quite
look
hard
back,
to remember.
but yeah, I look back and they'll bring up something. I go, son of a bitch, that was me. Like, were you at the New York Con? The Spider-Man came and he jumped off the balcony and grabbed a flagpole and flipped down onto the stage and took off the red and blue and had the black. And I said, yeah, that was me. Wow.
Wow, look at that.
Um, or my mother ran a laundromat. Did you? No, I always did my laundry at home. And then he said, well, my mother met this guy that said he was Spider-Man. He brought all these comics. Marvel would give us these comics that
Mhm.
you would get a subscription to that were based on whatever characters you play, Captain
That's
America,
cool.
Spider-Man.
That's
So
cool.
we get a group of comics every month, and I, just had them. Then he was saying how his mother then called him and that I had brought in comic books the next day. And I said, you know what? Wait, that was me because I used to take the costume to a local laundromat where they had that thing where you put woolite in because of the suit. I wouldn't do it
Mm,
at the apartment complex.
okay.
I think I remember your mother. And yeah, because I would have given her a bunch of comic books to give to you.
That's very cool.
So I'm getting a lot of people to say, wow, I remember this, or I remember that, or that really touched me, and so forth. So
That's fantastic. So that would have been a few years before the Canon film. That would have been like 82, something like that.
I had a long run in New York. Um, it was a kind of an interesting thing. Um, this is kind of where that whole idea of writing about it came in, was just I didn't want to write a book about being a stuntman. Every stunt guy has written a book. I didn't want to write a book about Spider-Man appearances because how much do you speak about? So you dress up as Spider-Man and say hi to everybody. I kind of wanted it to all kind of integrate in.
Yeah.
When I went to the Marvel promotions office, a long story, I finally moved to New York and I called up Barbara at Marvel and I said, I'm going to be moving to New York. She said, that's great. You'll probably work a lot more because you're local. And went out there and got an apartment that was right out of Midnight Cowboy. It was kind of that small little cubbyhole apartment with the TV, except I didn't have to pay 25 cents to get the TV started.
Nice.
Favorite movie of mine, one of them is Midnight Cowboy. I love that movie.
That's a great movie. Great
It
movie.
really is.
John Voight.
So I lived in New York and I was auditioning and taking acting classes. Had I known then what I knew now, because I worked with Lee Strasberg and I worked with Stella Adler and I worked with Uta Hagen, and these are like the cream of the crop, and to me they were acting teachers.
Yeah.
So there was a little naivety about me as a kid, but I started segueing more and more into the Spider-Man promotions. But whenever I would visit Marvel, I would go to the bullpen and I would meet all the editors and writers and creators. That's where I first met John Romita.
Wow.
And I would meet Stan, who was kind of in and out. He was slowly starting to move on. He had stopped being the editor in chief and now was a publisher. So he wasn't in the office as much, but most of the people were, and I got to real good friends with them. And a couple of them said, "Yeah, you look just like Peter Parker." And I never really thought about it. I said, "Oh, cool." So they always looked at me as like I was the real thing. And promotions had their favorite Spider-Man. He was taller than I was. He was much thinner than I was, but he was always getting the premier appearances.
Mhm.
But for the bullpen, I was their choice. And anytime they had something that was associated with Marvel Comics and creators, they would say to promotions, "Oh, by the way, we want Scott."
Nice.
So in the end, I was kind of the creators' Marvel bullpen favorite
Okay.
as compared to, I mean, I was second favorite, is my understanding, to promotions department.
But you were the real deal with the actual creative minds
As
back
far
then.
as the creators was concerned, I was the guy.
That's
So I had
awesome.
this whole relationship going. Did a lot of conventions. Marvel also once in a while they would call the Marvel offices when they were casting for something. It'd be an audio book or it'd be a TV or radio spot.
Mhm.
You would get your regular submissions to agents. They would submit and actors would be called in. And um, I got a call for this TV commercial, which was the Atari Spider-Man game,
I just
which
I just watched a little while ago actually, but
it is
I want to hear about it.
it is the hokiest little game you've ever seen, but it was so cool. It's first Spider-Man video game. So there were the actors that were submitted by agents. I also had an agent at the time, but I was put into Marvel. And I heard one of the Marvel promotions women was pushing Spidey, their Spidey. Oh, he's perfect. He's Spider-Man in and out. This is it. He's Spider-Man. And I'm like, okay, thankfully it wasn't their choice. On the audition, there was a guy before me that was bragging about his audition. He had come in, and most of the time we had a Spider-Man suit with us because we were doing a weekend promotion. And the question is, what do you know about Spider-Man? And he took the suit out of his bag and said, I am Spider-Man, and then put the suit back in. And I went, okay, well, I don't want to be an idiot, but that was kind of stupid.
Yeah.
So I came in for my audition, and they asked the same thing. I said, I am Spider-Man, and I put the suit on, and I was Spider-Man. I put that suit on, the sarcasm, the witticism, the movements, everything. I was Spider-Man. So my audition, they said to me, would you mind hanging out and staying behind? I
Nice.
said, sure. So I'm there for about an hour and a half, and they're interviewing, and finally they come back and say, okay, we're not going to make any commitment right now, but we'd love it if you would stay and read with our Goblin actors now.
Cool.
And I'm like, okay, this is a good sign.
Yeah.
So I read and auditioned, and I was the only Spider-Man left behind, full costume, doing the audition, and then lo and behold, I got the part. And it was a hell of a commercial. I lived off of it for 2 years. Back then, residuals on commercials were you
Wow,
get a nice national
that's cool.
That's amazing.
whoa.
So
Yeah.
if the canon film were to have fully come to fruition, would Green Goblin have been the main villain?
The main villain was Doc Ock.
Doc Ock. Okay.
And it was interesting. I mean, I could tell you a little story of that if you want. I don't mind jumping ahead.
Oh yeah, whatever you want. Go on.
No, it's all good. It's part of
Yeah.
the history. I had at a certain point, after back and forth and living in New York and doing stunts and so forth and so on, I moved to California.
Okay.
And they had a Marvel West Coast office that was set up that was on Sepulveda Boulevard. And they had a woman there that was handling, and I would call, and I would get booked on various things and, have the costume and go on different promotions. And I got called by Marvel New York and said, Stanley, now I met Stan on various occasions, but never really met Stan outside of the comics.
Okay.
So it was always Spider-Man. He never met me.
Interesting.
Oh, weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, canon is set up now after Roger Corman had the rights, and then they segued over to someone else, and then Canon Films picked up the rights. And now I heard big news that Canon Films was getting ready to do Spider-Man. So I'm in touch with Canon Films. Hey, what can I find out? Well, there's no news. It's way too early. Okay. Get a call from Marvel. Stanley is doing a organ donor commercial, and he wants Spider-Man, Captain America, and the Hulk there. Would you play Spider-Man? Yeah. So I go over there. I've been trying to get in with Canon for the longest time. At one point, I did meet promotions department, and they liked me enough that they wanted me to do a photo shoot for publicity. So all the publicity shots, I was on a trampoline. I suggested the trampoline because I want to do all this wire stuff. And I said, you'll get some really fluid movements if you just take pictures of me flying through the air.
Yeah.
So we had a whole photo shoot that day, and promotions loved me, and I got introduced to casting, and casting loved me. Real quick segue into that. Toby Hooper was slated to do the movie.
Oh, interesting.
So I worked really hard, and casting got me a part on Invaders from Mars. So I was playing Marine #1 or something like that. And I'm there all night. I'm freezing my ass off, and they finally decide that we're done. We're not going to get all the shots. And I said, damn, I really wanted to meet Toby. And the first AD said, well, why is that? I said, well, he's doing Spider-Man. Oh, he's not doing Spider-Man anymore. I said, excuse me? Oh, no, he's not. I said, do you know who he is? He goes, not really, but I know that he's got some other projects with Canon he'll be doing, but he's no longer associated with Spider-Man.
Okay.
Okay, well, I made a paycheck that night, but my connection that I was really desperately trying to get into was no longer working.
Yeah.
Back to Stan Lee. So I go in to do this commercial, and I'm very Spider-Man-ish, and he likes me, and we're talking. And at the end of the day, after we shoot this commercial, I'm Stan Lee, and I believe in Stan said, I don't sound like that. Yes, you do. Anyway,
He does.
I went into the office out of costume, and I introduced myself. You look just like Peter Parker. I said, really? He goes, yes, they're doing a movie. I said, no, really? He said, yeah, So we ended up having a relationship and being really good friends.
That's awesome.
We stay in touch. And about maybe a month, I'd be back and forth a couple times a month, maybe 2 or 3 times. I go to the office, we'd hang out, we talk about things. Um, Stan was getting to a certain age that he would pull his back out a lot. If he was shaving, he did it wrong, his back would go out. And I was really strong on the physical fitness, and I put a series of exercises together specifically to strengthen his back.
Wow.
Wow.
Because the last day that I ever talked to Stan, his back never went out again. So we always appreciated that.
That's awesome.
But there came a point we were talking, and he said, the scripts aren't doing really well. It doesn't look that good. And the new director was a guy named Joe Zito. Joe was the golden boy at Canon because he shot a $2 million film that pulled in 28 million, which was Missing in Action. I think it was originally Missing in Action 2, but they ended up releasing it as the first Missing in Action. I'm not sure. I'd have to check my history.
It's a good return, though, definitely.
Oh, yeah. So he was their golden boy. Big bucks on a low budget movie.
Mhm.
And I'm doing everything I can to see Joe, and I can't get in the door. It's too early. This is that. I know they were working out story concepts and ideas. So one day I'm talking to Stan at the office, and I go, whenever you talk to them, how would you feel about putting in a word for me? Stan goes, well, who am I? They're not going to listen to me. And I said, Stan, you got a lot more pull than you might think. So one time during the conversation, Stan says, oh, you got to see Scott. He's Spider-Man. My agent gets a call the next day. It's Joe Zito. Let me meet this Scott Leva guy. I keep hearing about him from casting and promotions, and now Stan Lee calls. I'm like, yes, I'm in the door.
Nice.
Went in, met with Joe. We had a really good conversation. I had a whole package put together, which I never ended up giving to him because the discussion went to tell me about Spider-Man. And I got into Spider-Man. It was all the dysfunctions and what makes him the everyday man and why you relate to him and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
Great. Got really excited. He started talking, found out that Doc Ock was going to be the villain. He kind of pictured Bob Hoskins. And I go, yeah, that would be actually pretty good. Imagine him with a bowl cut. I mean, he's Doc Ock.
Yeah.
Jessica Tandy they were looking at for Aunt May.
Okay, interesting.
I remember Hugh Cronin and Jessica Tandy. If you don't Google or go to IMDb and you'll see, she's, oh yeah, that could have been Aunt May. So I was really good relationship. I forget his wife's name, which is terrible. I don't think they're married anymore. Lovely lady. She was going to be doing a charity, and Joe asked, "Can I make an appearance here for children for a Spider-Man?" I called
Hmm.
Marvel. Said, "This is on me. I'm not asking any money or anything." And I went out and I had just a hell of a time at the party. I forgot why I was there. I was just being Spider-Man.
That's awesome.
And Joe came out. He talked and so forth, and turned into this long waiting process. Scripts went from bad to mediocre. They brought in different writers, Leslie Stevens from Twilight Zone or Outer Limits fame. I don't remember which. He had written one. The big one, and they were fans, was Ted Newson and John Brancato. I became very good friends with Ted, who I just recently found out passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it freaked me out. You end up falling out with friends in a way that not like you no longer become friends. You just stop staying in touch. And
Totally understand. Yeah.
we used to stay in touch a lot. And he did a couple of plays that he had me come in and read them before a live audience. And we used to talk all the time. We did a podcast. I forget the guy's name, which was about the canon film Spider-Man. But anyways, the scripts, they were missing the magic that was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And the movie kept kind of getting pushed and getting on hold. And I was supposed to go to the Cannes Film Festival and represent Canon doing Spider-Man. And I was all set to do it. And then out of the blue, it's canceled. Okay. So Spider-Man is kind of put on the back burner, and Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus go out and they buy the rights to Superman and to Masters of the Universe. And they think, this is it. We got the big thing now. This is just going to put us over the top.
Yeah.
And Canon made the mistake a lot of smaller companies do, is they went way above their pay grade with trying to do a huge multi-million-dollar picture.
Mhm.
Superman 4 is probably the worst Superman movie ever done.
Yeah.
Chris was one of the producers, and like the whole atomic bomb sort of thing, getting rid of it. The special effects were atrocious. He-Man, Masters of the Universe.
That was the Dolph Lundgren one, right?
Yeah. I mean, the concept, if it was done well or done right, could have worked, but they really just blew everything on those two movies. And then Spider-Man got put on the back burner, and they decided maybe they'll go to Italy, cheaper stages, cheaper production. Joe had gone to Italy to take a look at locations, and it kept dwindling down from 20 million to 10 million to 5 million.
Man,
That sucks.
And there came a point where I finally said, I don't think this is going to happen. And I had invested so much time, energy into it. I need to get back and start making a living because my money was running out.
Yeah.
And this sort of kind of went by the wayside. I heard it came back again. Albert Pyun was slated as the director. And I tried to get in with Albert, and I couldn't get in the door. And then I found out that they were actually casting was sending my picture to agents requesting a younger looking version, like he has to be 15 of me. Okay, so you like my look, but I'm too old for Peter Parker now.
oh, it's so annoying.
Frustrating. Yeah.
But I'm also too young for Uncle Ben, and what can I do? So I tried to get in on the stunt side of it.
Yeah.
But movie never made it. It never got made one way or the other. And that was kind of the history of it there. And I'm sort of
That's amazing. But I mean, the fact that it came so close to actually becoming a thing, you actually had those promo photos done. And I remember reading where that promo photo, one of the photo shoots you did, became an actual comic book cover. Was it Spider-Man 260 or 267 or something like that? Or they used it as the
that was a
model?
whole different thing. I was in New York at the time. That was before I forget Danny Fingeroth, I think, and I love Danny. He's a great guy, good editor, good writer. I think he had come up with the concept of doing a photo cover.
Okay.
And this was before the whole Spider-Man movie thing was, there was just talks of it. This was before I went to California.
Interesting. Okay.
They came to me and said, hey, we want you to do Peter Parker on this cover. We think you're dead on and it would be great. Bob Layton was the artist. I guess it was a filler issue because whatever the issue was supposed to be it wasn't meeting his deadline. So they had this special issue and they decided, let's go with a photo cover. Elliot Brown, I love Elliot, very creative individual, was in charge of putting the cover together. That's Elliot in the background by the door.
Oh, okay.
In a tape dispenser with a flash on it while the camera's on the other way.
That's cool.
We took a series of angles and shots, and finally this was the one. And Bob had drawn a backup cover in case the photo cover didn't work. And it did, and that's kind of become my claim to fame. That's where, oh my God, that was,
That's so cool. I remember seeing those when I was a kid and thinking, oh, what's the story behind this? And now I know. It's amazing. But I also have seen pictures on your Instagram of you dressed as Scarlet Spider, as Ben Reilly.
Danny Fingeroth again.
Okay.
Web of Spider-Man. I think it was Web of Spider-Man and Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. Let me see if I can find those. Oh, come on, today I have.
Love all the toys in the back, by the way. So cool. Great collection there.
No, that's nothing.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Love it.
That's sick.
Such a great collection, man. You could do a whole video just on your collection.
Oh
right
wow,
there.
there it is.
Oh wow.
Yeah, wow.
Can we take a look at the Academy Award? Can we see your Academy Award?
Yeah.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
With a friend of mine from the photo cover had made a 6 scale.
So cool.
6
Oh,
scale
that's great.
animation.
That's
That's
badass.
great. Yeah.
I
That's
play
it.
with that all the time.
Anyways, what was that? Please tell me it's easy to find. Come on. I don't have as many comic books as I used to. So, oh, bingo.
There you go.
Web of Spider-Man.
Hell yeah.
You can see
Nice.
that. Okay, that's the Scarlet Spider-Man. We also did, where's the other one? Oh, Spectacular Spider-Man. We did 2 shots. And this is me as Peter Parker.
Oh, I see. Okay. It's a little hard to see in the hologram.
Yeah, as you move it, I turn into Spider-Man.
Cool.
That's
Cool.
cool.
Scarlet Spider was for Web of Spider-Man, and it was this really cool 3D photo place that I would stand and they would set up the shot and they would do this 360
Wow.
and
Cool.
do the position, and I slowly moved towards camera. So I'm in a crouching position, and the Scarlet Spider suit was specifically made for that shoot.
So cool.
That's
And
really
it had never been worn since, as far as I know. And
wow.
that's the only time. And I was lucky enough that when they did some test shots, they gave me the Polaroids. So,
Oh, that's great. Now, did you have to return the costume, or do you still have the Scarlet Spider?
oh God, no, that was a Marvel suit that Danny had put whatever it was, and I don't know where it is, and I don't know if Danny. I should get in touch. I talk to Danny from time to time, so I should ask him where the costume is or if he knows.
Is that same with the traditional Spidey costume too? That was just a Marvel property.
I had him for a while, but after everything kind of went south with Spider-Man, I couldn't get on any of the movies.
Huh.
I started to lose my taste for Spider-Man, and
Interesting.
the suits that were mine, I think I ended up selling.
Wow, that's
I started losing interest.
Yeah,
totally
for sure.
understandable. Yeah, but that kind of segues into, dude, Scott, I have so many things I want to talk about on here. You have worked on so many amazing things, but that kind of segues into the next thing I wanted to talk about was X-Men, the first X-Men film. I would love to hear about working on that. I've seen on your Instagram photos of you with the Wolverine claws working on choreographing fights and sequences, and I saw the deleted scene of you as Spider-Man running up behind Halle Berry and behind James
That's actually
Marsden.
behind the scenes. I was working in New York and I met a guy that was a stunt coordinator, Gary, and he had worked with Bryan Singer before.
Okay.
Tom DeSanto, who is now behind all of the Transformer movies, huge comic fan, huge X-Men fan, and he was the one. Laura Schuler Donner had the rights. I think it was to Wolverine or Wolverine and the X-Men. It was something, and she never really touched much on it, but they had the rights.
Mhm.
So that was 20th Century Fox. So Tom segued in getting Bryan Singer, Academy Award nominated director for doing X-Men.
Yeah.
And he kind of put it all together, and the big time producers, who I have a lot of respect for, were all behind it. And I guess some of them were a little unsure about Bryan, but they had made a deal, and Bryan was going to be, and that was going to be a stunt guy.
Mhm.
Well, I would talk to him and fill him in on things, and I knew the X-Men. I understood X-Men and so forth. And one thing led to another. I get a phone call if I want to come out and work on X-Men. My wife is Canadian, so I have dual national status, and I was going to work on the Canadian side. In Canada, when you bring a U.S. stunt coordinator in, they have what's called a match.
Mhm.
You have to have a stunt coordinator from Canada that's also the stunt coordinator on it. Gary wanted me to be that. Producers, anything Gary wanted, they fought against. So I ended up working on the film and doing a lot of things. And I ended up choreographing the Statue of Liberty head fight.
Oh,
So
great.
cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
Now, originally, Dougray Scott was slated to play Wolverine, and I was going to be his double.
Interesting. Okay.
The fight I choreographed was nothing like, well, a few things were similar, but I took it right out of the comics. I mean, I've got him slashing and jumping. There's one point that Wolverine basically skewers him through the head, the Statue of Liberty head.
Cool.
Mhm.
Sabretooth takes him and slams him from side to side and throws him off. And then suddenly you think he's gone, and then you see him doing this one-armed giant swing and comes up, and the fight continues.
Yeah.
It's very comic oriented. We got a call, little segue here. They were looking for their Wolverine actor because Dougray was no longer available for whatever reason. I don't know if he'd been injured or something. I think it was a Mission Impossible movie he was working on.
Okay.
And so in between, I was still choreographing. We had what's called the Stunt Players Directory. It's this book that has a list of all the stunt people and people they doubled and their sizes, weights, and so forth.
Mhm.
And I had that book, and we were finding stunt doubles and so forth. And I looked at Tyler Mane and said he'd be a perfect Sabretooth. I mean, we find a Sabretooth actor, this is your double.
Yeah.
And Bryan Singer liked him so much that ended up being Sabretooth.
That's awesome.
He'll to this day, if you ever talk to him, say, "Oh yeah, no, thanks, Scott Leva got me into there."
The best.
But
He was so good. I mean, he was like the embodiment. He was scary, you know?
oh yeah, and Troy Brown. Then we found a double. Troy Brown came out, and he was a big, tall guy, and I ended up picking Troy to be the stunt double for Tyler.
Nice.
But a lot of the choreography I was working with Tyler on, misses and scratches and so forth. And there was a whole bunch of stuff there with the choreography, but we got put on hold for a while. Well, meaning that I can't work with Wolverine. We don't have a Wolverine. And I'll give you a side story here. So Marvel calls, and Fox is setting up a TV network in Amsterdam. And they want to have Spider-Man come out, and I would be there for about a week, come out and preliminary stuff, and then they want a kind of an appearance. So I go to Amsterdam, I scouted out, and we decided I'm going to be crawling down the side of the building. And I got a rig set up, and I brought a friend of mine. If I had to do it all over today, I would not have brought him. He wasn't really that good of a rigger.
Oh.
And as we're going out, I would be saying, hey, no, too much slack, tighter. And the people below were going, tighter, it's too much.
Oh,
So they were
jeez.
moving.
Oh
A
no.
little scary.
But it looked really cool because I was pressed against the building, and I would crawl down the building. Then I flipped over, unclipped myself, meet and greet. Then we go into the building.
Yeah.
And the woman, adorable woman, very, very cute.
Mary Jane Watson, right?
No, she was our sponsor. She was taking care of us. She suggested before the appearance and everything a night before that we visit one of the local pot cafes. I don't partake in pot, and I'm not just saying I really don't.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tried it before, not really my thing, but I went, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really care for it much. And then she was going to go, but she said, oh, you've got to see a live sex show. So we went to a live sex show, and again, it's sort of like, okay, so it's the same thing here. Boy meets girl, boy eats girl. Who cares? It's it's what it is. So long story, and it was like, okay, not my thing. The next day, and this is going to sound really weird, I went to the Anne Frank house. That was cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
All
I'm
right.
sure it was.
I don't do it. What? No. The other shit, I don't care about. Don't get me wrong.
That's funny.
But that was cool. It was like such an incredible piece of history
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure.
in the house.
History is definitely more fascinating at times, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that being said, I mean, Amsterdam is its own world. You're literally window shopping, and there's prostitutes at the window and everything else. It's very government controlled, and no judgment. It is what it is, and it works. So yes, I could say I've been there because I was told, oh, you've got to. Well, if you go to Amsterdam, you don't necessarily got to. I would say you have got to go see the Anne Frank house but
Interesting. Okay.
we do the whole thing. We go in, and they want me to do a fight between me and the Green Goblin. I already knew that, so I had the Green Goblin suit with me, and my other stunt friend was going to be the Green Goblin. Then I'm told, okay, no body contact, no head hits, no punches, no all this stuff that you can't do that. I said, okay, so wait a second. So basically, I can come out here, I can get him stoned, I can fuck him, but I can't hit him. They go, yeah. Okay, gotcha. So I put this whole fight together.
You can take him to the Anne Frank house.
Yeah. Basically, that's what you're telling me. And that's true. That's legal, but the violence is not. Okay, so I did a lot of kicks and spins and misses, and I ended up grabbing his hand and flipping him, and he runs off. And they loved it. So that became a success. Back to X-Men. Fly back. We've now got our X-Men. Wolverine, young actor out of Australia by the name of Hugh Jackman. Love Hugh. He was great. Awesome. Whenever I would see Hugh again down the road, Scott Leva, God, this guy made me Wolverine. And it was wonderful to hear that. I gave a lot of insight into the character. It was difficult. He's 6'3" and Wolverine's what, 5'6", 5'4". He has a short man complex. And I'm trying to get that over to Hugh, who's almost the same height as Tyler when they're doing this fight. And a lot of his animosity and anger comes from short man complex. And I tried to explain the whole berserker rage. So I would work with Hugh, training Hugh with a fight, and he picked up very quickly. And it was great. Then we hear from production that they're hearing there's a problem with the fight. And I'm thinking, what's the problem? The fight looks like it's right out of the freaking comic book. So we're doing a show and tell. We've got me and Tyler Mane and Troy Brown and Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, and we do the fight. Now, I'm the first one that comes out, and I'm talking, I just kick-ass throws and this and that. And then I said, then he flips, and I did a one-hand spring, boom, 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 and explained how it went. And then Hugh did it, and it was phenomenal. And Brian, it's the first time he's seen the fight, starts to him and haw and goes, well, it should probably be a little more violent. I'm thinking, well, you haven't been to Amsterdam. Um, more punctures and this and that. And so I didn't. So now producers are like, oh, well, this doesn't sound good. Brian's making statements he's unsure. Okay. Now they decide to bring in a couple of second unit directors. They bring in Corey Ewan for the Mystique fight inside. By the way, if you see a lot of the sequences there, you go to some of the other Corey Ewan movies, you'll see the same exact action shot the same way. And he's a very talented individual, but some of the action he's using is stuff he had done in previous films that he literally just took and just moved it over to X-Men.
Makes sense.
I'll give you a quick little thing. I had a concept of Mystique during the fight. Like if she got hit and she hit the wall, she suddenly morph and disappear because she would look into the wall, or she would turn into something. She'd keep moving around and just tagging Wolverine.
Yeah.
One sequence, he comes at her, he swings, and then I have her go between her legs, grab his ankles, and flip him and come out. So I was looking for a really strong backwards. It's never been done, contortionist. And you'd speed it up. I mean, the girl would go slow and she'd grab and this, and then he'd be on wires and you see him go boom, boom, boom. Okay, well, Corey had his own concept. And then Conrad came out and he was a second unit director for the statue head fight. Gary, who was the stunt coordinator, didn't like Conrad. I don't know why. There was a lot of in-house fighting. People didn't like this guy or that guy for whatever reason. So I was taken off the head fight and Conrad took over the head fight. And there was a lot of pile driving and a lot of slamming and this and that. And I'm walking by Conrad's office one day. I'm at this point now on second unit working with Corey. Conrad says, Scott, come here. And he shows me a bunch of storyboards and says, I got this letter from 20th Century. And he says, really glad you're on board, Connie, love you, love your work. But we're feeling that the statue head fights looks more like WWE wrestling. And he turns to me, are they talking about your fight or mine? I shrug, you're talking about your fight. You're missing the action. So they went back to some of my original moves. I go down on first unit where Connie is. He's on his own second unit where they're doing the statue. And Conrad's just livid. Conrad passed away recently, big icon in our industry. And I respect Conrad. So if it sounds like I don't, know that I do. The stuff I had put together, I had worked specifically with the riggers, and I had certain ways that when he throws him, part of it is going to be the stunt guy that you literally almost have to start a one-arm handspring, a one-arm giant. Like if you do a giant on, this would be one arm, but the cables would take over. So then you'd release and then you'd pull them up again. So that way you get the slam. And then the same thing that he would do a one-arm giant swing, wire assisted when he came around, because we had a large stage built like the head. So I had done these and it worked, but I'm a gymnast.
Yeah.
And I knew that it worked and it looked really cool. So that being said, Conrad's livid. It's not being done. Well, what's going on? Well, they can't do it. I said, what are you talking about? They can't make it work. So I turned to Gary and said, let me put on the harness. Gary goes, no. Okay, well, I can. So in the movie, it doesn't work to the aesthetics that it was set up for. It was a really spectacular comic book fight.
Yeah.
The head swing is an animation. It looks like an animation.
Yeah.
And it was real. It was practical. And that bugs me to this day.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Too many egos getting in the way. So I'm back on the Corey Ewan unit. By the way, I can't remember his name now. Short round from just won the Academy Award.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Worked with Corey's team. He was translator.
Ke Huy Quan.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
He would show you and tell you what Corey was saying. So he was part of Corey's fight team. And they're doing the fight between Mystique and Wolverine. And I wasn't a fan of it. It didn't. I think when you do action, it's got to enhance the character. It can't just be action for action's sake.
Exactly.
Oh, this was cool. It's like Spider-Man. When you do it, it's part of who Spider-Man is. Okay. If you remind me later, the Spider-Man audition for Canon, I'll get into that Spider-Man and who Spider-Man is.
Perfect.
So it's not working for me because it's not who the characters are. You could kind of cheat on Mystique because she's never really been, she's moved around a lot on different things.
Mhm.
Yes, she's a shape changer. And yes, we're not incorporating the shape changing except she becomes the Statue of Liberty. In my fight, by the way, Wolverine finally, he's fed up with she's tag teaming him and boom, boom, boom. He closes his eyes, he sniffs her out, and he just suddenly nails her with a, it's a sense. That's what he can do. He's got these heightened senses.
Yeah.
That was, he takes her out in my version. I thought that would be cool to see him go, wait a second. I don't need to see you.
100%.
So they're doing this thing, and Wolverine keeps running away from the fight. And I go, why is he running? Corey goes, he go to rescue Rogue. And I go, no. Gets down to business, finishes it, then moves on.
Yeah.
They don't get it. You're not going to get this guy that's going to have to, because no matter what, if he tries to get the Rogue, he's never going to get there unless he finishes business first. They didn't understand it. So I go to my buddy, Tom DeSanto. Tom goes, oh, no. He goes to the set and they change it. Say, no, Wolverine definitely would finish business first.
Yeah.
So I had some input, but a lot of what to me made it wasn't in there. So things got a little tight, miserable. As I said, there was a lot of in-house fighting. I once made a joke. I saw Brian reading an X-Men comic. I found, oh, you're doing some research finally. And he goes, oh, yeah, these are pretty good. You know, it's things I get fired for. So it was interesting. There was just producers didn't like one person. They didn't definitely like the stunt team. The riggers hated us. But then we were guilt by association. They didn't like Gary for whatever reason, and I don't know what it is, and that's between them and Gary.
Yeah.
So one day, we've set up this whole thing. Now I'm gonna set up a cable pull with a ratchet to pull the door out when Cyclops shoots through the door when they're now going to the statue head, and you'll see the door blown off. Well, that's me setting up a wire pull that I'm able to pull the door off by the hinges.
Oh, that's cool.
So then they're all supposed to run up and finally get a sense of what's going on. So I turn to Tom and say, hey, Tom, tomorrow when we get to this scene, work with me. I'm going to come out as Spider-Man. Tom goes, I love it. I love it. So I've got the Marvel costume with me. They come out. I run in behind and people start laughing. Nobody knows why. And then they turn around like, I am so sorry. I am completely in the wrong movie. And I run off. And from there, it kind of became a, part of cult history, that the Spider-Man's first movie appearance.
That's legendary.
Yeah, and that was the thing on Instagram, that it suddenly got all these things like, well, who is this guy? When I stepped in and said it was me, and somebody answered, I call bullshit. I want proof, and I said, Google Scott Leva Spider-Man. Go to my IMDb. Wow, you're the real deal. It was me. It was no big deal. That's what. Yeah, I was Spider-Man. So
it was probably a good time to do that too. Like you said, if the set was getting kind of tense and if it wasn't, that much fun at that point in time, it was probably some levity that was needed.
Got a lot of feedback about that. Even Hewitt said to me, wow, we really needed something like that.
That's awesome.
Because there was just too much tension.
I bet.
There was just way too much tension. It became so miserable. I was having second thoughts. This is what I really want to do for a living.
Wow.
And being such a huge fan of Marvel, some of the stuff they do with Marvel, I think I like Kevin. I met Kevin. He was assistant to Lauren Schuler Donner. Huge comic fanatic. So we're talking two fanatics, and we would talk about things. And when I was trying to get on the Spider-Man movie that Sam Raimi was doing, he was on my side. That didn't work out. And then we would talk like a couple times a week. And he said, well, guess the one thing that Sony doesn't like. And I go, Tobey Maguire. He goes, no, what did you hear? I said, well, I heard some people didn't think Tobey was the right choice, but because the action, they're not happy with the action.
Interesting.
And I said, oh, okay. And he said, well, I'm trying to see if we can get you in because I want to do reshoots on the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, yes, but politics played his way. And
which fight were they concerned about? Was it the final fight?
The Goblin fight.
Interesting.
I would have used a lot more webs. I'd be pulling, I'd be throwing him across the room, the whole thing to where he's finally beaten to a pulp and then the glider comes. I mean, I would steal that right out of the comic with the spider sense and ducking.
Yeah. The
motions. Every Spider-Man was missing that kind of, it's a defensive, offensive move that when he gets into a crouch, doesn't this look cool? And if you look at the old Ditko books, the way he would leap around and so forth, that to me was missing. Sarcasm was missing.
True. Yeah.
That's my opinion. Nothing against.
No, I totally get it. Before we get too far along, because there's so many other things I want to talk about. You wanted to finish your story of what Spider-Man meant to you, or tell us about Spider-Man in your audition with Cam.
Oh, shoot. Thank you. So it finally gets to the point that we're going to do the audition, and I get the script, and Peter Parker's a breeze. I have no problem. I'm Peter Parker. I'm doing this thing. And then I do the Spider-Man dialogue, and it's just not working. And I try it again, and and my manager at the time, who used to be my agent, he's trying to give me, and I finally turned him and said, I need the suit. He said, what do you mean? I said, Spider-Man is an extension of Pete. Pete becomes more brazen, more outgoing. I said, if he doesn't have the suit, he'll wear a bag, he'll wear a web mask. He's always covering his face. And that lets the extension of him really go. That's where the sarcasm and the witticisms come. It's too stagnant for me. And he looks at me like I'm crazy. And he goes, okay, try on the suit. Try on the suit. Boom, I'm Spider-Man. The dialogue flows, the most, everything moves. It is Spider-Man. He goes, okay, you're right. Let me call casting. He calls casting and says, hey, would it be okay if our actor wore the suit? Not a problem.
Cool.
I go to the audition today. A lot of young guys sitting out there. One guy's talking to me. Oh, what do you have here for? I'm here for Peter Parker. Are you here for Peter Parker? What are you going to do? I'm like, my manager grabs me, takes me to and says, okay, you don't need that kind of energy. You don't need that kind of energy whatsoever. So he takes me in another room, and I finally hear I'm up next. So go to the men's room, put on the Spider-Man suit. I hear my name, and as I walk out, I got all these actors looking at me like, what the F? Go in, and I'm reversing it. I'm going to do Spider-Man first.
Cool.
Goes Zito, says, oh my God, I love this. This is great. I do Spider-Man, and I add my own witticisms. I add my own motions. That when they're doing the action, I'll do a flip and then so forth, and I'm putting all this stuff together.
You've had a little bit of practice too, which is nice.
Oh yeah, no, I was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I then take off the mask, and I'm now Peter Parker, and I do the Peter Parker dialogue. I leave. Next day, I get a call from my agent saying, well, heard from casting that they got a lot of angry calls from other agents that they thought it was really unfair that an actor came in the suit. And casting said, well, if they wanted to do it, they could have done it. So it must have left some sort of impression. When I did see Joe later, when the movie was kind of getting back and forth pushed, but we were still there, he said to me, you did a really good audition. No. Really good audition. Just want you to know it. Okay. And I'm like, this is cool. But then the rest is history. Movie never got made, and coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Still a cool story though.
Yeah. Man, it's frustrating. Definitely. I mean, you seem like the guy.
Yeah.
You were the
At
guy.
that point. At that point. Yeah.
I'll blow this town to smithereens! Time bombs! Try to get up there in time, Spider-Man!
Watch me cut my web, Goblin.
Watch yourself fall, Silk Slinger!
Gotta stop the bombs in time.
If I don't get you, webhead, my diagnostics will!
Holy Hannah!
And you're running out of fluid!
Is this more action than even Spider-Man could handle?
Spider-Man, a video game from Parker Brothers, the ones to beat.
All right, so very, very cool stuff about you as Spidey. I've taken notes here on so much stuff I want to talk about. Are you still doing okay on time to talk for another?
Oh, I put the time, whatever you need, so I put it aside.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. You're the best. Okay, so one of my favorite films of all time is Collateral with Tom Cruise, Jamie Foxx, Mark Ruffalo, Michael Mann. I saw that you worked on that. I was trying to figure out what part I think you might have worked on, and I think I know. But I want to hear all about it. I have a feeling it could have been with the taxi cab body falling on the cab.
No,
I want to hear about it.
No, we were what's called ND, nondescript stunts. It was I think where the briefcase is thrown off the top of the highway bridge.
Okay. You are screwing with my work.
Yeah, and we were drivers below and stuff like that, and sliding cars. So it was just a couple of nights. It was just
interesting. Yeah, I saw it was like more one of the smaller sequences, but still curious just because it's so, I mean, such a masterpiece of a movie. I had to ask you about it. Did you have any interaction with Michael Mann?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's directing and he's telling us what to do. I didn't have a one-on-one. I mean, there are some directors I've had one-on-one, literally one-on-one having discussions with him. He was not one of them.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I had to ask. And then I saw on your Instagram, I saw a beautiful picture of you standing next to Clint Eastwood working on a project. I was wondering if you could talk about that.
Best movies of my life. One of our stunt legends who's been around forever, used to double Disney Zorro, is a guy by the name of Buddy Van Horn.
Okay.
Buddy passed away a couple of years ago. Buddy came out, there would be a place we'd work out and do stunts. And when I started developing new equipment, I have come up with different airbags and air rams, which are propelling people through the air. And Buddy had come out specifically to audition young stunt people for the battle sequence on Flags of Our Fathers that Clinton was directing. And I figured if anything, I'd be renting equipment because these guys were all in their 20s and, I'm like in my 40s and thinking I'm not going to be going out. The next day I get a phone call. It's Buddy. Hey, Scott, it's Buddy here. And, I know you're busy, but I'd love to have you come in as my assistant stunt coordinator. While I'm on first unit, you'll be covering second. And while I'm on second, you'll be coming first. I'm like, yeah. I said, oh, yeah, of course, sure. Yeah. So we kind of got to work on that. And it's more like a family that everybody's connected and they work together forever.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of respect. I learned a lot. He's very succinct, very to the point. I don't think we got any overtime on that movie. He was not like a 10 hour above. He was maybe 6 or 8 hours.
Yeah, I've heard that Clint Eastwood, and I'm sure you can verify that he's like notorious for that. Like he's always like coming in under budget and doing just, minimal amount of shots, just kind of what needs to be done and moving on. Very efficient.
And it works. And I learned a lot from that. He was interesting to work with. He was easygoing. We had one sequence, it was near the end. A medic is supposed to be running, I guess, to save somebody, and he gets shot. A little piece of history I found out is the enemy would always try to take out a medic, because if you take out the medic, you've taken out a lot of Marines because there's no one to help.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, a piece of history I hadn't known. So, I'd read the script and I'd broken it down, and I was working with Buddy. And I'd worked with Clint a couple of times now, and I'd met him and he knew who I was. So Buddy comes up and he goes, hey, Scott, you're going to be the Marine get shot in the throat. And I'm like, okay. I don't remember this. What is this? Oh, yeah. He goes, and then Ryan comes up and tries to save him, and a bomb goes off, and that's where Ryan's character gets sent home because he's injured. Okay. So I go to the set, and they do what's called the Tinsley effect. I don't know if it was the same year as me or not, but he won the Academy Award Sci-Tech for the Tinsley effect, which is this really, it's easy to apply. And then they put a little rubber hose through and it put in, and then I got a little button that shoots the blood.
Oh, okay.
I go to the set. They hide the button contraption in my medical pouch, and Clint goes, yeah, okay, you hide that there. You run, you get shot, you fall down. I'm like, okay. Buddy goes, yeah, come here. You start here. You run here by this rock, you dance, you do whatever you want, you're shot, you move, you fall. Here. Okay, now I got point A, point B, point. Okay, got it. Okay, we'll see. We'll do a run through here. Okay, ready? Oh, right. They don't rehearse. Let's do it. So they don't say action and cut. They say go and stop. Okay. So go. And I run. I take the shot. I dance around a little bit. I fall and I hear stop. Okay, moving cameras. Okay, that's a one-take deal. Ryan comes out, they're setting up the shots. Tom Stearns, the director of photography, really talented individual. The medical advisor comes over and he's talking to Ryan, and he talks about all this medical jargon. I'm just laying there in a pool of blood.
Yeah.
Doing all this stuff and all these things he would do. So Clint comes over and goes, you're fighting desperately to keep him alive, and you're fighting desperately to stay alive. And he starts to walk away, and Ryan goes, wait. Then he talks to Clint, and he tells him all this medical stuff he would be doing and this and how he would do it. And Clint goes, okay, fine. Now I'm confused. Oh, there must be more to this. So I raise my hand. Excuse me. Tom comes over and says, oh, you need something? Oh, you want direction. So Clint comes over. Oh, yeah, Scott, right. Don't fuck up. Looks at everybody, goes, best direction I give in this whole movie, and walks away.
That's beautiful.
But it was a pleasure. I'd worked on 3 films. I gave up a couple of the larger films. It was just a pleasure to work with them.
That's awesome.
I would have an incredible time. So one of my favorite film experiences. I love working with I love working with him. I love working with George Roy Hill. I love working with Steven Spielberg. Each one was a learning factor in my life.
It's amazing.
That's incredible. Yeah.
I can't even imagine. I mean, just the star power and just that kind of Hollywood royalty being around that. It's just
Yeah.
unreal. I guess that's probably a good segue to go into your Academy Award, because that was right around the same time. So you won in, I believe, 2006. Is that correct?
I think I received the award in 2006. Let me check the award here. Hold on. Give me a date. Presented February 18th, 2006. So would be for the 2005 year, but yes, 2006.
Very cool. So tell us all about your invention and your contribution, and I want to hear all about it.
Been doing stunts for a long time. High falls, explosions, fights are always, part of the industry.
Mhm.
Throughout the years, we would have various accidents or deaths. A lot of them were associated with high falls. If you hit the bag wrong, you'd be bounced out, you'd roll off. One of the last deaths was on Vampire in Brooklyn. Sonia Davis was doubling Angela Bassett.
That was the Eddie Murphy movie, right?
Right, and she's supposed to fall off. And she was in a tight alleyway, and they had the airbags stuffed up in there. And as she hit deep, and the bag went in and bounced her out, and the back of her head hit a wall, and she died of severe head injuries later. And I didn't take much of it. I always considered that was part of what happens is, So my very best friend I worked with a lot, a guy by the name of Paul Dallas, had his own company called Calculated Risk with another stunt guy named Tom Davis. And I would work high falls with him. And he was good with high falls. He had his own bags. I would always suggest maybe do this or do that with the airbags, and he'd implement. But I was working one night on a movie called Mars. John Hess, good director. Olivier Gruner was the actor. I don't know if you know who Olivier Gruner is.
I'm not familiar with her, to be honest. I'd have to look her up.
Him.
Oh, him. I'm sorry, him.
That's okay. A along the lines of Jean-Claude Van Damme, a Belgian or French accent, a very talented fighter. But we were doing this movie called Mars, and I set it up, and I was going to do a fire stunt that night. And it's where I leap through the air, and somebody shoots a flamethrower at Olivier. Olivier gets out of the way, and I get engulfed in the flame. I hit a table, and I fall. And I'll give you a little story to that so that you kind of know where it's going. I rehearse it. I've got fire safety all around. I got one to the left, one to the front, one to the right, two behind me. There's like 6 people with fire extinguishers. So if the table moves here, you move in. If the table moves there, you move in. There's kerosene on the table. So when I hit it, the table's going to ignite.
Mhm.
And I walk through it. And I'm coming here, and you go there. And so we rehearsed it. So I told him it's a 3-second burn. It's going to be very hot. Paul is there. We set it up. I'm on a trampoline. And the guy that's lighting me says, so as soon as you hit the trampoline, I said, no, the second you light me, you start counting to 3. It is a quick burn. As soon as I hit that table, it's over. Got it. So action, hit the trampoline. I get lit. Whoosh. I hit the table starts to slide across the room. 3, 4, 5, nobody's moving. 6, 7. I'm starting now to feel the heat on my face because it's
man.
8, 9. Put me the fuck out. Everybody. I think they get mesmerized. Now I'm burned. I got 2nd-degree burns, so forth. My face is red. I go to the doctor. Everything's fine. But oh man, it's like that hot spot all over my face.
Did you have a rubber mask on or anything?
No, this was because you were supposed to see the guy's face, and it was just my back. But when I hit the table, you're supposed to come right in before the fire starts to go up. Now I had a fire gel, but the fire gel is only going to last about 4 or 5 seconds before it starts to dry up with flames, because you don't want flames hitting it directly.
Yeah.
Either way, I got burned. Anyways, the end of the night, I go to Paul and say, hey, Paul, you want to work tomorrow night? And Paul goes, no, I'm working with Uncle Cole. That was the name of a stunt guy he worked with. He would call him Uncle Cole. They were doing this TV series for PM Entertainment. and he was bringing an airbag out. And I said, well, why don't you let somebody else bring out the airbag and come work for me? Nah, I kind of promised Cole I'd be there. Okay. Next night I'm working. Paul's not there. I get a phone call. We have answering services, Teddy's, Joni's. And I hear Joni's and she's mumbling something. I go, what? So what? Finally, Paul Dallas missed the bag. He hit the ground. I went, whoa, what?
Oh man.
Literally, I collapsed, knees on the ground. My wife is trying to call me. She calls. She tells me, yeah, I say, I heard. She says, I told him I was his sister. I'm getting information. It does not look good. And she tells me exactly how severe the injury is. It's not survivable.
Yeah.
Trying to find his parents. Nobody knows how to reach his parents. He was very private about his family. So I said, call Tom Davison. He knew his parents. So they get in touch with Tom and the parents are notified.
Mhm.
I finally wrap early, leave the rest of the sequences to another guy, and I go to the hospital and I just missed by half an hour. He had passed away. I wouldn't have been able to see him.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, what is it when you don't hit the airbag squarely makes it to where it's useless? It's supposed to be able to catch you.
Mhm.
So then I took it real personal and all these injuries and deaths. I said, okay, there's got to be a way. And so I started checking airflow system and the way the bag was made and the way it's baffled and the way it opens on impact. And I redesigned it. And by redesigning the airbag, I came up with a soft thing that if you hit the edge of that bag, it's going to roll you in. It will not pop you out.
That's amazing.
There's about 42 stunt people alive today that have hit that bag wrong. They will say, yeah, absolutely. It's a huge difference. So I reinvented the airbag, and that was in 1997, did a few changes. I think finally the 2005, people kept saying, oh, you need to send it to the SciTech Awards. Oh my God, you know, it deserves. They're not called Academy Awards anymore. Now they're Oscars.
Mhm.
So I submitted it, and lo and behold, I was accepted to come in and demonstrate it. And next thing you know, boom, I received the coveted.
That's magic.
That's incredible, yeah.
Was it kind of surreal being in there, or was it just one of those where you're so used to being on movies and everything, it was just another day going in to get.
No, it was exciting because you're part of motion picture history. I mean, stunt people don't get Academy Awards. They don't get Oscars. Whether or not that will ever change, they just brought in casting directors.
Mhm.
There are casting directors that made actors' careers that
Sure.
have said, this is
Sure.
Dustin Hoffman. Who's that? Al Pacino. That's who you want. Al Pacino. Trust me. Al Pacino's your guy for Michael Corleone. You got some magic there. Do they deserve an award for that? I do not see why not. Do I think stunt people should? Yeah, there's a science. There's an art.
100%.
Yeah.
I would say so. 100%. I mean, it's a huge part of film.
Whether or not it ever happens remains to be seen. That being said, yeah, it's a part of history that's always been exciting. It's interesting because I've worked with some of the biggest directors. You know, I won a scientific technical achievement award from the Oscars. The I've won an engineering award from the Emmys. I've won some other awards. I've been nominated for SAG awards and Taurus awards and blah blah blah. But I'm best known for being on Amazing Spider-Man number 262. So you go do that, you figure it out.
It's amazing. I'm so looking forward to your book though. Like when that happens, like that's going to be incredible just because like I said, I feel like we're barely scratching the surface with the stuff we've talked about and you've done so much so far in your career. So I'm stoked for it. I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that when the movie kind of fell through, I had all these notes and I was going to write a book about Canon films that never happened. And then I thought, I never got to it. And I'm glad I didn't because there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
It's how I grew up, Army brat, new kid, first comic book I ever read, my relationship to Spider-Man, how a lot of things I did.
Mhm.
Always related. There were times that I would think about Spider-Man and thinking how he kind of stumbled his way through it, that I would do it, and that my relationship and so forth. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of history, but yeah,
Amazing to be intertwined in that web of just Spidey's history. You know what I mean? Like that's so cool.
but it's definitely I'm a part of Marvel Comics, and I knew the people and I knew them well. I knew Jack Kirby and John Romita and
How was Jack Kirby? What was that like?
Jack. I met Jack after he had a falling out with Marvel. We were at the Golden Apple Awards, and I'm giving the awards out of Spider-Man for Bill Leibowitz. And Jack is just happy as hell. And he goes, when I first created Spider-Man, you're what I had in mind. And I'm going, wait, you created Spider-Man? I didn't say that to him. Because he was basically saying that he had created a plethora. Now, my relationship with Stan openly said he co-created, that Jack would bring in concepts of a character he had envisioned. Silver Surfer is all Jack.
Mhm.
He openly admitted that.
Yeah.
And he would come up with a concept like the Fantastic Four would be a group of oddball heroes, some of which the Thing comes from, the monster books. You got to have a monster. No one's ever had a monster as a hero, which is how the Hulk was developed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jack, Stan, as far as I know, and had always come up with the concept of Spider-Man.
Mhm.
And Jack originally drew the first incarnation, and he had done a character called the Silver Spider, which kind of looked like a patriot with webbing on him and the big Captain America boots.
Mhm.
And Stan just felt it was wrong, and so he decided he went to Steve, and Steve came up with a conceptual idea of the costume and the way he looked.
The Steve Ditko.
Steve Ditko.
Steve Ditko.
And he gives credit to Steve for a lot of things, but the concept. But after I had met Jack, and Jack had said that, I was with Stan Lee about 3 weeks later, and we were talking about creations and so forth. And I said, listen, I don't want to step on toes, but I was kind of surprised when I met Jack, and Jack said that he created Spider-Man. And Stan was visibly hurt by that.
Oh, wow.
I'll give Jack a lot of credit. And he's a creative individual, but he did not create Spider-Man. That was mine. That was a conceptual idea that I had come up with, the whole thing that I had to fight for, because Goodman didn't think anybody would like a character based on a spider. That's why it was a throwaway at first, but that was mine. And that was the only time, and I didn't want to get in between. I'd also stupidly opened my mouth because Stan had told me that he loved John Romita, but what John was missing from the Spider-Man that Steve brought into it is the people were too beautiful.
Mm.
He said, but he was the perfect artist to first introduce Mary Jane Watson, because Steve couldn't do that.
Absolutely.
But Peter took more of a soap opera actor look, more beautiful, and all the women and so forth. And he said it was good, and I love John. And when I was talking to John about that, John was visibly hurt. He said, well, and I'm thinking that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
You have your own idea, but you
Just
do
different.
draw beautiful people. I mean, even your villains had sort of a chisel jaw look to them that when you break it down, I mean, you came from romance comics.
Yeah. You don't want Hobgoblin to be sexy, right?
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh, I know Emmett had a few questions for you as well.
Yeah, I earlier you said working with Spielberg was really great too, and I don't know exactly what your capacity on Hook was, so if you can talk a little bit about that.
Hook was this huge movie, and I was working on Star Trek 6 at the time, and there's a whole story in the book about what happened there, which would be easier that when that comes out for you to get into some behind the scenes details. But I ended up working on Hook. I was a swordsman. I was also learning a lot about rigging. And we had this whole shipboarding sequence where there's a big fight between the Lost Boys and the pirate. I spent 2 weeks on that set laying dead as a pirate on the stage floor. It was good paycheck, but long day.
Yeah.
But one day I'm out front, full pirate gear, big beard and everything else. Somewhere I got pictures. I've been looking for them. I want them.
I watched that movie fairly recently, a few months ago, so
good.
I have it in my head pretty good. Yeah.
Most of us, I mean, all those big beards and all that. Anyways, one of the guys I really respect, he was a stunt coordinator on Rocketeer. I was friends with Dave Stevens, so when I worked on Rocketeer, I would hang out with Dave, and I love Dave. Also met his wife, Brett. Brett. But Jim says to me, you know safety and rigging, right? And I go, yeah. He says, I need you to go to stage 25. I went, oh, crap, because I like sitting around watching Spielberg work. This was exciting to me.
Of course, yeah.
So I go to stage 25, and there's this weird camera set up in the far corner. And Julia Roberts comes in, and she's got these tiny little wings on her, and she's supposed to sit on the seal of this cuckoo clock.
Mhm.
I'm behind her so that she doesn't fall. I got pads back there, and I'm basically got my hands on her butt. So I call myself, basically Julia Roberts butt wrangler.
I could think of worse jobs.
Yeah, yeah. So um, I'm sitting there, I'm bored. I'm there for an hour and a half while they're setting up the shots, and they're talking to Julia, could you move here? And she's got this assistant she's working with who's very outspoken. And suddenly Steven Spielberg comes in. And for 3.5 hours, I'm watching this man direct. He's on the phone with Harrison Ford. Hey, Harrison, how you doing? Oh, God, no, we're doing this. And they bring up stunts. Oh, yeah, I'm using Gary. And then they talk about the guy they worked with all the time, Terry Leonard. Once again, stunt legend. Terry did all of Indiana Jones, has done some incredible stuff for all his years. Um, and he says, Harrison said, well, tell him not to even step off the box anymore. So I hear these conversations. So in between shots, myself, Julia, Mr. Spielberg, and Julia's assistant are sitting there. And we're talking about the film that just got released, Harrison Ford, regarding Henry.
Mhm.
And the assistant just goes on this, oh, I thought it was so phony. The wound, it just healed too quick. You didn't get a sense. And I went, well, I disagree. I said, if you watch it, you see it healing as it goes, which gives you a sense of time. Because it doesn't heal overnight. You see it slowly healing, and that gives you, as he's progressing and relearning his life.
Yeah.
And Spielberg looks at me with this total respect. So for 3.5 freaking hours, I got a private directing class with Steven Spielberg.
That's
And
amazing.
it was cool.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
unreal. Wow.
So that's my Steven Spielberg story. So
That's really nice.
That
Wow.
is so cool. That is so cool. Let's see here, man. We've got so many. I'm sorry. I'm trying to just pick the cream of the crop, but you've done so many good ones. Emmett, go ahead and continue.
You were Ray Liotta's stunt double?
yeah, interesting story. People always said I was a really dead-on double for Ray. And when I'm with him, I was a pretty good double for Ray. I worked with Ray on a couple of films, and surprisingly enough, every time I saw Ray, Ray would say, do I know you? We met before, right? Yeah, I doubled you on this. I doubled you on that. There's one guy stepped in and said he was Ray's stunt double, and took over on one film, and the coordinator was pissed. One, the guy wasn't capable, and two, looked nothing like Ray. But Ray never had to where, oh, this is the guy that doubles me.
Hmm.
And when I called up the coordinator, said, I understand you're looking for another double. I've doubled Ray in the past, and I'm pretty good. And then I talked to Ray, and Ray says he doesn't have a stunt double. I said, trust me, he doesn't even remember my name.
Jeez.
I liked Ray,
Yeah.
but it was frustrating.
Which films were those for Ray?
One called Phoenix.
Phoenix, yeah.
God, there were like 3 or 4 of them, and I cannot remember.
Wow.
One we shot in San Felipe, Mexico.
He must have just had a bad memory, I guess.
I
don't know.
Well, I have a bad memory not remembering the movies. I mean, if I go on IMDb, I'll go, oh, and I got pictures of me and Ray.
I feel like you've got a really good memory. Some of the stuff like that you've been
Yeah, you've
talking
done a
about
lot,
so far, I
yeah.
feel like you got me beat, definitely. My buddy James, he's a big fan. We have another podcast we're gonna be reviving soon called the No Expectations podcast. I told him that we were talking with you, and he was very excited about it. He was looking at your IMDb, and for James, he wanted me to ask you about the Sarah Connor Chronicles and the Toxic Avenger movies. I promised him I would ask you about those. If you have any
Toxic Avenger
info for James on that.
Yeah. Sarah Connor's stunt coordinator, a guy by the name of Joel, phenomenal. He basically lucked into a situation. He was Arnold's double. And the stunt coordinator, Benny Dobbins, well loved and well respected, had literally had a massive heart attack on the set of Red Heat.
Oh, geez.
And Arnold and Joel got along, and Joel was a pretty good double for Arnold, and ended up being Arnold's guy, and segued into being the coordinator, and handled it well, because you can end up doing some of these massive films and you can fail miserably.
Mhm.
He was very good, and because of his work with Cameron on Terminator 2, when they did the Sarah Connor's Chronicles, he ended up being the coordinator, second unit director. And I worked a couple of episodes. A lot of times I'd bring in equipment. One time I played, I think it was an orderly. It might have been the Insane Asylum. I don't remember. It was an early on episode.
Mhm.
And I think I just got knocked out of the way or pushed out of the way. And then a lot of other times it was just rigging and setting up stunts.
Okay, interesting.
Joel.
It was a good show. Very good show, though.
Yeah, I thought it was. The problem was it didn't do well and was too costly.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was like a movie budget, but it
Yeah.
was a good show, and she's absolutely phenomenal. But I enjoyed working on
That's awesome.
it.
And then how about the Toxic Avenger movies? I
That's
think you
another
worked
claim to
on a
fame.
couple of those, right?
There's a That's one of my big claims to fame too, is I'm working on this major feature film at one time, years down the road. And this one guy goes, "Oh my God, you did the Toxic Avenger. Oh my God, that's my favorite movie." And I'm thinking, yeah, but I've also done, it's no big deal.
Mhm.
But Trauma is like Roger Corman, um, a sidestep of Roger, almost even lower budget than Roger.
Mhm.
They're interesting. I mean, when you look at it, a lot of names came out of James Gunn is Trauma. Did you ever see the movie Super?
Super.
That's
Who
the
was
one
in?
Sounds really familiar.
Rainn Wilson,
Oh,
You
I
know,
have to look it up.
fight
honestly,
runs away with a drug addict.
I'd love to say that I did, but that's one I missed. I didn't see it.
Watch it. First of all, there's a lot of Trauma-esque violence in there.
Okay, cool.
And it's one of James' early films, and I have a lot of respect for James. And James has taken creative concepts and, Marvel, much to Kevin Feige's, I think, inspiration. I'll get back to the Toxic in a minute. Bear with me.
Fine, yeah.
You're given most cases B, C, and D characters, because all the big characters with the studios, the Fantastic Four is 20th Century Fox, X-Men is Sony, Spider-Man is Sony. So your flagship characters you can't touch.
Hmm.
Well, what do we got? Well, Iron Man, well, he's kind of a B character, and depending where he is, sometimes he's a C character.
Mhm.
Change the industry around. And what he did is he stuck to basics. Now he's taking what I consider the C and D characters, Guardians of the Galaxy. Well, you got a very creative individual and James Gunn behind it that I think makes a phenomenal feature and character based and fun. And, he brings his own take on it, the way he looks at it, and it works. The same with Ant-Man, for God's sake. So that being said, I had met these people way back. We actually had to audition for the Toxic Avenger as a stunt coordinator. He wanted to see what ideas. So a group of local New York stunt guys would come out and they would put together action. And I had done a couple of interviews and they really liked me, but I put together these really cool fight sequences. And lo and behold, I get hired to be the stunt coordinator on the Toxic Avenger. Lloyd wrote a book, Everything I Know About Movies I Learned from the Toxic Avenger. And there's a whole chapter about stunts, and he rips the stunt people apart. Incompetent, worst stunt ever. But when he talks about me, you think I was a stunt god. He really liked my creativity. He liked how when I said something, I would make it work. And when they went against it and it didn't work, they would go, he had this one thing says, always listen to your stunt coordinator. I had a good relationship with Lloyd and Michael. So I came up and started working on the Toxic Avenger, which was pretty much nonstop, action. I came up with a whole car chase and the motorcycle going under the truck, and I would create those. And I had to completely open whatever I wanted. That started early. We had an alleyway fight scene where Toxie's supposed to be in. I said, well, Toxie's in the alleyway. And the car pulls up, and like a clown car, the door opens, and all these thugs start getting out of the limo.
Mhm.
And Lloyd goes, I love it. I love it. Why is Toxie in the alley, though? I don't know. He's taking a piss. Love it. Let's shoot that. Next thing, taking a piss, and they decide it's like acid on the wall.
Nice.
I mean, facetious. Okay, but you go with it. And I would do things like that. I don't know. Is this? And he go, love it. We'll do that.
That's
So same thing with the guys getting out of the car. He says, where are they coming from? I said, a big limo. So, oh, it's perfect. Well, one of the stunt guys came out of the limo and he spit. And Lloyd goes, oh my God, I love that. I'm like, okay. So this other stunt guy thought, oh, he likes that. I'll do it. I said, well, Mike's going to do that because, and he goes, no, I got to do it. I got to do it. So I take the other stunt guys aside and I let this stunt guy come out first and spit. And then I have all the other stunt guys come out of the car zipping up their zipper behind him. He has no idea I've got them doing this.
That's brilliant. It's
Oh,
great.
he got mad. He says, they did not use that shot, but I just figured, don't mess with it.
Super.
But I would always be creative concepts, see hands on fire where I grab them. I said, oh my God, it'd be so cool to see that in the hands. And the fire stunt, I came up with a creative way, and the going out the window, that a lot of the stunts I ended up creating and making them happen. And Lloyd was just completely open. And my relationship with Lloyd has always been a creative one, to create something and make it work.
Mhm.
Even if it was off the cuff. I made a joke when we were doing War that the credit scene, that all the dead people, this big mass group of dead people on roofs and the floor, all lift up and wave. And sure enough, that's the end of the movie now. They're all waving. But I'm being funny.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I had no concept of how much input stunt doubles potentially have in the film. You don't think about it. You don't really hear
In
too much.
some cases, it works. I got a job because I didn't give input. Stephen Kessler was doing a movie called The Independent, which was kind of a take on Roger Corman. Jerry Stiller was playing this director that had done all these huge low budget movies. Massive.
Jerry Stiller, you said?
Jerry Stiller,
Cool.
Ben Stiller's dad.
You love
Yeah.
Jerry Stiller, yeah.
Oh, it's a good movie too. And I'm up against the big boys in town. I'm up against Terry Leonard and Alan Graff, and these guys are like mega A movies as the coordinator.
Mhm.
And I go in and I interview, and he's telling me about his concepts. And I said, well, they're good concepts. My concept is to give you what you want. If this is how you want it to work, I'll make it happen.
Mhm.
And I left thinking I'm never going to hear from him. I get a call. I'm the only guy that didn't tell him how to shoot his movie.
Oh,
Wow.
And the other guys had the experience to tell him what to do. Don't get me wrong.
yeah.
But he didn't want to hear that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, Lloyd is very creative, but likes creativity other ways. So I didn't go in the meeting and give him a bunch of concepts. As we were shooting, I would come up with.
Interesting.
Lloyd kept trying to get me to come back. I did do Toxic 1 and 2, which became 2 and 3. They split into 2 movies. And I did War. And Lloyd kept trying to get me to come back and do a movie. And I talked him into doing Toxic Avenger 4. Oh, you got to come back and do it. And I didn't. I was booked on X-Men. And I love working with Lloyd. But we would always meet up at the Comic-Con, San Diego Comic Convention. And he was going to do another Class of Nukem High. I don't know which one, whatever the latest one is.
Mhm.
They had a high fall they wanted to do, and they had a big burn. And the last Toxic, it was a friend of mine that was a coordinator. They did not like the burn. Part of learning how to do burns, I've developed a certain fire accelerant that I can change the color. If it's too bright out, I can make it a darker orange. I can give you more smoke. I can give you less smoke. And it's just the way I work with this accelerant. But my friend's he's a hell of a fight guy, but the fire, you couldn't see it. And making fun of him and putting a cigarette lighter in front of the camera saying, this is a bigger burn. So it was kind of embarrassing for him. And I felt bad for my friend. But Lloyd said, yeah, we got a big bird and, we want to make it look right. And even on the behind the scenes, when they were talking about this stunt, they go, oh my God, I love Lloyd, but he keeps bringing in his friends. They don't know what they're doing. And I tell Lloyd I will come out and do those 2 stunts. They have to be done the same week. You're going to pay my expenses. You're going to pay this and this, and I will be happy to come out for the week. Absolutely. I fly out, and Lloyd hooks me up with this assistant. A lot of the people love working for Troma. It's your best film school on making movies with no budget. And as I said, some of the top people in our industry have worked with Troma and come from it. So I go out, and this guy's just got an attitude with me. I'm another one of Lloyd's buddies. So he's talking to me the day before, and he says, okay, this burn has to be spectacular. The guy comes out, his head's all puffed up and exploding, and he's just on fire. And it's got to be big. Did you ever see the Toxic Avenger? And I said, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I was a stunt coordinator. What? Oh, whole attitude changed.
Nice.
Now they want to do behind the scenes interviews that they want to put on this. And that fire was big. It was spectacular as he goes down the stairs. And I rehearsed with him. I had my fire crew at the bottom ready to move. I said, I need you to go against the rail. You're going to come down blind. And I need you to just stumble down using that. And he did. And it looks great. The guy comes out. I light him and I'm talking. It's just, he's a fireball.
That's
But
awesome.
it was kind of fun to have that, to where someone said, have you ever seen this movie? Because, well, yeah, I did it. Oh shit, it was kind of fun.
Yeah, there seems to be a running theme of people's egos sort of getting on each other, sort of have the grace to know whether or not your input is desired in a certain situation seems to be important.
A lot of it is me being facetious. Robin Hood Men in Tights. Carrie Elwes was Robin Hood, supposed to swing down, kick one night, and they go down like dominoes.
Yeah.
And Victor Paul was the stunt coordinator for this half of the sequence. He's a brilliant swordsman. And his son, who's a dear friend of mine, Philip, is doubling Carrie, but he can't hold up that V. I'm a gymnast. And it can really work your stomach abs because I got to hold this perfect seat V and come down and kick.
Oh, wow.
And you do multiple takes. And at one time, they had me come in to double Carrie. And I got to be honest, I was surprised. I was a pretty good double for Carrie. I was a spitting image in the makeup. I thought this is cool. So I do it. My stomach's starting to hurt. And as I swing down one time, I let go 8 feet above the ground. I go, oh shit.
Oof.
I hit the ground, I roll, and I handspring out. Victor comes up and says, I know what you did. That was good. Good save. Mel Brooks comes up and goes, oh my God, that's fantastic. Leva. Well, it's Jewish, right? You're Jewish? No, you can't be Jewish because Jews give the orders, Gentiles take them. You got to be a Gentile. Never mind. So we're kidding around and joking. And he said, I love that. Can you do that again? I said, yeah. And I said, you should probably have them hold up a sign like in the Olympics. I'm joking. It's in the freaking movie. I was kidding.
That's
I
the
was kidding.
best.
But if you go through that sequence, you'll see them holding up signs.
That's
Wow.
amazing. You gave Mel Brooks direction. That's amazing.
Funny.
That's
So, it's some of the people like the Mel Brooks and the, Wes Cravens and so forth that you kind of have a conversation with is cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
what was it like talking to Wes Craven?
Wes was very succinct. I'm supposed to be a bodyguard, and there's a big explosion in the hallway where they set these missiles. And we're shooting on one of the sound stages. It might have been Warner Brothers, I don't remember. And me and another stunt guy run, and the explosion blows up the whole back hall behind us. And I think that's it. And then this is Joel again. That was the big time coordinator I was telling you about. Comes over and he's talking to Wes, and then he says, okay, one of you is going with us to Florida. Scott, that'll be you. Wes picked you out and thought that you would be. I said, oh, okay. Yeah, you're going to do some pre-shots before the explosion.
Yeah.
Cool. So I got a nice week's vacation in Florida. And Wes just explains things very like, this is what I want. And I'm in this sequence, and he says, we've got a really tight, close look on your face. And you're seeing these rockets come right at you, and I need you to give me this what the fuck look. And I get this every time that's on TV. I get somebody sending me a photograph. Oh my God. And there's that what the fuck look on my face.
I missed it, Scott. I'm sorry. Which movie was that? I missed it. I'm sorry.
Red Eye.
Red Eye. Oh,
Red Eye.
so
But right before the explosion hits the window, you'll see a really nice tight close up.
oh,
That's awesome.
beautiful. How was it working with Cillian Murphy?
I didn't really work much with him. I worked a lot with Rachel McAdams.
Oh, love her.
That's cool. She's great. Yeah.
She's amazing.
Actually was at the SciTech Award she was hosting, and she's the one that gave me the award that night.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I actually reminded her that the week before I just worked with her and it brought out all the safety bags and stuff. And, oh my God,
that's
I need to
awesome.
do it there. So
Oh, let her know I say hello. I've always had a little bit of a crush on Rachel McAdams.
no, she's a beautiful person. But
She's fantastic. That's so cool. What a cool project to work on.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. All the hard work and the danger that goes into it. You'd think there would be more of a point, and you'd hear. I just saw a video a few days ago. It was like just a quick YouTube video. It's super tragic. The stunt double for Harry Potter was paralyzed on the second to
Oh,
last.
if you have not seen that documentary,
I'm not. Yeah.
oh, it's on HBO Max. I know I sound like a salesman here.
No. Yeah.
But it's phenomenal. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
He's basically quadriplegic, and this was a active, fun-loving stuntman, and it was really proud to see Daniel still associated with him and dealing with him and putting this together.
Yeah, that's nice.
There's part of me thinking they're going to show it because he got slammed pretty hard to where he broke his neck on impact.
Yeah.
And there are injuries, and sadly there are deaths. I had a friend that became quadriplegic from a high fall. She landed feet first into the airbag, and her back stretched, and it broke her back.
God.
I've been fortunate in my years. I've never had a broken bone. I've been burned.
Wow.
I've been
Wow.
cut. I've been
No
knocked.
bones. That's something.
Yeah. But there are injuries that things turn around and things happen, and you hear about it. I can say that I don't think we've had any high fall related deaths since I implemented the airbag.
There
Yeah,
you go, man.
you-
That's so
I
incredible.
think
Yeah.
you've saved a lot of lives, honestly.
So that makes me proud. And I've had instances. I had one guy yelling at me. They were doing this short movie at Universal, and this guy Theo, remarkable stunt guy from England, had to do a high fall, and he has to come over the balcony, which is like a rail, so it sucks you in. And what you don't realize that it can kind of bring you underneath instead of straight down. That's what happened with Paul. Is he went over the rail, and instead of going out, he came underneath, and it makes it. I actually saved the stunt friend's life. He argued with me. I wanted to put pads underneath. It was only a 20-foot fall. He had to come off and go over a rail. And I said, no, I want him out here. So I put pads out there and I put the pads underneath. And on the stunt, he's underneath looking up at the ceiling, turns to me, goes, thank you. Yeah. So that being said, I show up at the set after everything to pick up my airbag, and the special effects guy, Josh, comes up to me and says, you are so fucking lucky. So that guy hit the edge of your bag head first and should have gone to the ground, but he rolled in. I guess, yes, the bag's designed to do that. No, bags don't do that. You are so lucky. He hit it wrong and he got sucked in because he should have been on the ground and dead. I said, yeah, that's what the bag is designed for. They don't do that. Bags don't do that. My bag does. Still did not believe me.
Wow.
Said, yes, he hit the bag wrong. He hit the corner, but it lifted him in, and that's what it's designed to do.
Wow.
So
He finally get it through his thick skull.
I don't think he ever did, because no matter what I would tell him, I said, no, bags don't do that.
Jeez, too bad.
This bag does. That is why that's what that bag is designed to do. So
you are a superhero in many ways. That is
I
amazing.
guess.
That is amazing. All right, so I think we got a little more time here. If it's okay with you, I want to ask you a few of these things. I saw you worked with Pee Wee Herman a little bit, and I
Oh,
saw.
I love Paul. I love Paul.
Can we talk about Paul Rubens for a minute?
Yeah, I love Paul. Henry Winkler and Stacy Winkler would do these charities, and I went out to do Spider-Man. I met a lot of actors, and Henry, of course, would call in favors. We had Anthony Hopkins, we had Mel Gibson.
Wow.
We had a bunch of big name actors, and Paul Rubens was there. And I knew about Pee Wee Herman. I was never a fan. I'd never really watched the show.
Mhm.
And Paul took a liking to me, and a couple of them did. And I'm doing Spider-Man all over the place for the kids. And, he's doing Pee Wee Herman voice and everything. And anyways, he asked, hey, can you give me your number? I'd love to, meet up later. And I said, sure. And I give him my phone number. About 3 days later, I get this phone call, hi, it's Paul Rubens, and listen, my friend, Cassandra Peterson, she plays Elvira,
Elvira.
is having a birthday party. And I would love it if you could dress up as Spider-Man there and surprise her. And I said, when is it? Yeah, okay, I said, I'll go there. So I go to Elvira's house, and there's a bunch of people I've never met. There's Paul. I got a picture, I think it might be on Instagram, with me and Paul. And we hear something coming in, the lights go out, and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting, and nothing. Nobody comes in. I felt like, well, this is nice. The guy I just met asked me to dress in tights and hang out in a dark room with a bunch of strangers. No, it's nothing like that, Paul keeps saying. Anyway, she finally came in. It was a hoot. She was fun to meet. Paul and I kind of became friends. We would hang out. I'd go visit him at his house on Bronson Canyon. Big toy collector, weirdest toys you've never heard of. He had something.
Interesting.
I liked the guy. Incident happened, had nothing to do with, I could care less about whatever his incident was. We just sort of kind of drifted apart, meaning that I did work with him before that. He brought me in to play a mail carrier. I don't know who the girl was that we delivered the package with Grace Jones in it.
Oh, cool.
So I worked on his Christmas special.
Oh, that's awesome. You were in the Playhouse. That's impressive.
Yeah, there's actually, as it comes in, you'll see me kind of swaying back and forth as she's singing and bringing her in. I don't remember what I said because I don't know if it made the cut or not. Move it here, or here it is, or something. But that was a lot of fun. Paul invited me and a couple of his friends to Disneyland because they were opening up the Star Wars space ride. He did the voice of the robot.
Oh, fun.
And so I would go and hang out with him sometimes on free days. And as I said, there was a time we sort of drifted apart. And about 3 years ago, I get this weird text. Is this Scott Leva? Yeah, hi, this is Paul. I met you when you dressed up as Spider-Man for my friend Cassandra. Do you remember me? Yes.
Wow.
I don't really mean to be weird or anything, just have to protect myself. Can you tell me my last name? I go, Rubens. Scott, how are you? Boom. The relationship opens up again and we start communicating. And every birthday, now every Christmas, this never failed, even when we went our separate ways, he sends you a Christmas card.
Wow.
And the Christmas card is usually a Pee Wee related Christmas card,
Mhm.
but you're one of the select few. He might send out 100 of them, 200 of them, but it's not and also you can't share them.
Wow.
No social media, nothing. These are for you only. If it's ever caught elsewhere, you're off the list.
Wow.
They were always very special to me to get these Christmas
I'm
cards.
sure. Yeah.
But on your birthday, you would get this whole big list of memes and videos and this and happy birthday, happy birthday. And I always look forward to that.
Yeah.
Boom, out of the blue, I hear he passed away from cancer. But I'm glad we reconnected.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, now, totally okay if not, but could we peek at one of those postcards, the front of one?
I don't have it in front of me, and I would not have a problem showing it to you.
Okay.
Dig through Christmas stuff and some
Totally
of it.
understand. Totally. What an honor, though. That's so cool.
You.
Such interesting characters.
Yeah, the last Christmas, not this one, the one before was the last one we got, I think.
That's amazing. Yeah, what an honor. I mean, because that had to have been, even if it was a fair amount of people, still he had to do each one of those. So that's quite the honor,
Yeah.
That's amazing. Emmett, did you have a couple of these you want to talk about too?
I think the last thing is about oh no, well, you go ahead. I think you know more about these than
Oh, I was just going to ask you about being an actor on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
yeah.
I saw you posted that on your Instagram, and big fan of the show.
I was never a huge Star Trek fan. As a kid growing up, I loved the Wild Wild West.
Wild Wild West is great.
I just thought this was so freaking cool. They actually did stunts that would put Jackie Chan's team to shame. I mean, I'm looking at some of these guys hitting hard.
Oh yeah, love Wild Wild West. I actually got the collection on DVD.
Oh, same.
So good, so good.
It's definitely good.
Oh man,
Very kick-ass, and that always got me going, oh my God, that's exciting. But I slowly started getting into the Star Trek, learning more about Star Trek and the production. And I don't remember if I don't think Star Trek: The Next Generation was shooting when we did Star Trek 6.
I think it started in '87, if I remember correctly. Next Generation.
Yeah. I remember going to meet with a stunt coordinator. You do what's called hustling, where you go and you introduce yourself and drop off your pictures. And Don Pike was the stunt coordinator on Star Trek 6. And I'd come in and I had worked with there was a friend of mine I'd met. I don't remember how I met him. He came really close to mine. He was Gene Roddenberry's right-hand man. His name was Richard Arnold. Richard knew, it's like me with Spider-Man, knew everything Star Trek. And I mean, he would make sure, and production hated him because he was a stickler for making Gene's vision stay Gene's vision. When Gene passed away, they got rid of him, but he knew his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I came in and I got lucky that I was going to be 3 days on the Excelsior. A lot of the Star Trek stuff, the ship gets hit with an anomaly and we all shake and so forth, and we throw ourselves aside. Everybody on that set was a stunt performer except for the two actors, Grace Kelly and George. Interesting story, which is in the book. I'm sitting with George, and we're kidding around and we're talking about diversity in Star Trek, and I said, it's interesting that you never really see an openly gay person on the crew. And George, sure they're there. It's just, you don't put it in your face, it's and I go, yeah. And then I start making jokes. I said, but could you imagine? Oh my God, I'll take you to where no man's gone before. And he's going, and I go, did you see what I did with the lithium crystals? Do they not work? Do they not? And I was just every Star Trek thing you could think of, I was using as sort of this gay, funny thing. And
Yeah.
and he's laughing hysterically because it was funny. Oh, you want to see warp speed? Stuff like that. So, anyways, Mike Nichols, the director, looks over and goes, "Oh, it's George," because he's laughing loud. Anyways, later on, I talked to Richard, and Richard says, George is gay. I said, I had no idea. I said, oh my God, I hope I didn't insult him. He goes, no, he thought you were trying to hit on him. I said, oh, well, that's okay. I mean,
That's funny.
it's so long. I wasn't insulting because to quote Seinfeld, not that it really matters.
Right.
Now there's anything wrong with
I
that.
was just coming up with this little funny thing off the cuff, and but that was fun. And I played a Klingon. They were having issues with the wire work. With some of the stunt guys couldn't hold their position, and
Mhm.
he had us come in, and lo and behold, I could. So I ended up playing the transporter Klingon officer that gets blasted the first time they come in. And
It's cool.
through Richard's help in meeting people, I started segueing into the TV shows, The Next Generation. I ended up being an overpaid extra. I'd have to do something. One thing is Worf was moving down the way and just pushes people out of the way with his shoulder, and I get slammed against the wall because it's like a small shove, but he's a Klingon, and I go, whoa. Well, that got cut. So in the end, I ended up doing background.
That's cool.
So I worked on a couple of Next Generations, and I worked on Deep Space Nine. And at one point, I got to read for a part, and I thought, this isn't going to happen. I'm like 5'10", and Klingons are like 6'5", the shortest. I'm built, but these are big guys. But I come from an acting background, and I go in and I do Ordekin, and boom, I get a call on the way home. You want to work?
Cool.
Book the role. And then a friend of mine, I forget, I had done a favor, and he was working with the stunt coordinator, Vince Dedrick. And I love Vince. Vince did something so kind to me that I will never forget, and he knows it. But Vince was doing Enterprise.
Mhm.
And I just said, my friend says, was there anything I could do? Can I pay for this? I said, no. I said, when you talk to Vince, though, please tell Vince I have worked on every Star Trek so far, including the first one, if you consider Star Trek 6. I've worked with the original cast.
Interesting.
It kind of would mean a lot to kind of cap it off with. And I get a call, and I work a day doubling somebody who gets shot on Enterprise. So I worked before they went off to Canada and started shooting the new shows for Paramount.
That is so cool.
Right.
Wow. Did you have any crossover or interaction with Patrick Stewart or Jonathan Frakes or LeVar Burton?
Patrick Stewart, yes. I had met Jonathan many years ago when we were doing a White House appearance for Marvel. Their favorite Captain America was Jonathan.
Huh.
And Jonathan was like all of the actors. I always thought, Captain America should be Captain America. But they thought he was the epitome of Captain America, as thin as he was. He played Captain America, and I met him.
Didn't know that he had ever done that.
Yeah, he did Marvel appearances before me.
Interesting.
His big thing was Captain America, but he was their favorite Captain America.
That's cool. Jonathan Frakes. Wow. What was the White House event that you guys did?
Carter administration.
Carter,
And we would every year until someone else recently took over before Biden. I think he canceled the Easter egg hunt. I think Biden had it. It was a thing that every president did.
Wow.
That they would do Easter, and you would have celebrities and characters, and Marvel was contracted to bring out. I was the Thing that year. I wasn't Spider-Man. Spidey, the favorite Spider-Man was Spider-Man.
Okay.
But I got to play the Thing. Big molded suit is hot as hell. Very difficult.
Can't imagine.
That's amazing. What a fun little thing.
But, I had met Jonathan there, and then I would talk to Jonathan on the set, and I would talk to Patrick. And I made some joke with Patrick about careful, number one, don't step in number two. I mean, he didn't quite catch that. I thought that was funny.
That is funny. That's awesome. Wow. Well, I saw on your Instagram, I know fairly recently you had a very beautiful German Shepherd that passed away. And I was wondering, just as a dog lover, it looked like it was a very well-trained dog as well.
Interesting thing is, growing up, I was a cat person, and I love cats still. My wife is allergic to them, and my daughter is, and so we can't have a cat. And my wife was always a dog person. And being busy, it made it difficult for us to have a dog. And being away a lot, though, my wife wanted a German Shepherd. Her father had one when she was little, and so we got a rescue shepherd, our first one, and this all segues in. And that dog just took to me. And she was beautiful. We called her Shanti. And I was in an accident on a stunt to where I did a car hit. The car came in too fast and I bounced into the windshield and was knocked out.
Oh wow.
And I had a severe brain trauma. I actually do no longer have a sense of smell, but I've not lost my sense of taste. But if really stressful things happen, I can have what's called a whiteout, where everything suddenly goes white. And I hear you, but I'm done. I'm just on the ground.
Really? Okay.
Somebody said, Shepherds and Dobermans are really good seizure alert dogs. They have a sense of smell and a sense of um, where they know what's going on before it happens. Well, Shanti had a lot of social issues as a rescue, and she couldn't really take to being a service dog, and she could never pass the test. And I didn't want to just put a vest on her and say she's a service dog.
Mhm.
But okay, here's the story too. And I'll get back to Zasha. So any of the stuff you want to cut, please help yourself.
Oh no, you're good.
When I was working with Vince Dedrick, who I'd worked with on Star Trek, Shanti was our dog, and I didn't know how old Shanti was. And I was working a lot, and I said to her, "Hey, listen, I'll take you to the park tomorrow. I know you love to run." As I got all the pads in the car, and she was with me. Um, I had an airbag I had to put on the show, Victoria, small little tiny airbag I designed and developed, so one person could set it up, but it worked like the large airbags. It caught you if you're off center. So we're out there working, and I get a panic phone call from my wife. And she said, I finally called her back, and she says, I think Shanti's dead. I said, what do you mean? She's not moving. I said, sometimes she does that. She just lays here. You need to push her, kick her. She says, it's not, trust me, she's by the front door. We went for a walk. I came back. She was at the top of the stairs. When I opened the door, she's laying by the door and she's not moving. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, put a tarp. She said, I can't do that. She said, when Georgia comes home, what do I say? I can't move her. Vince comes up to me, puts his hand on my shoulder and says, hey, listen, it's okay. This is a rehearsal. You go home. You deal with what you have to deal with. I know how hard it is. Take care of that. And when you've done and you got everything, I got you covered. You come back. Kept me on the clock. I went home. Yes, my dog had passed away. Oh, crap.
Yeah,
Deal with it. Pick her up, put her in her last car ride, take her to our vet. And sure enough, and they're going to handle things, cremation, and we'll get the ashes, bury her ashes under her favorite tree.
yeah.
She was very calming for me. We had a relationship, but she could not stop me from having seizures. So we decided about 3 months later to look into another German Shepherd. And this time it was going to come from an actual breeder who is one of the foremost breeders, Rocky Mountain German Shepherds. And they do work dogs, they do police dogs, but each dog has a separate. And these dogs are really good for service dogs. So we get this little tiny puppy and learns quick, very smart, learns right away you're not supposed to go in the house. And I mean, ran for the door, but didn't make it and felt bad, but was easy to work with, easy to train. And at 10 months old, I started taking her to agility. And oh my God, you would think I opened up a whole new world, loved it and was good, jumping, weaving this, and we would have fun. And then I started working with training for seizures because the woman that trains service dogs, the first thing you have to do, anyone ever tells you they have a service dog and you're not allowed to say, well, what is your disability? You can say, is your dog CGC? And you're wondering, what is CGC? CGC is Canine Good Citizen. It's a certain test that a dog must pass before it can become a service dog, before it can become an emotional support dog.
Interesting.
You legally have a dog without it first passing the training.
CGC. Okay.
So my dog passed CGC, and then we started working, and I worked with elderly people. I worked with drugs, what drugs were harmful to me, and she could sniff them out like that. And I would work with people in wheelchairs, loves people in wheelchairs. We'd be walking and she'd look and I say, excuse me, my dog is real excited. Can she say hello? Yeah. Oh, hello. How are you? How are you? When you put the vest on her, whole different dog. Just by your, whenever we would go to agility, she would be puppy, dancing around and jumping around, and she was good. She titled, she won, and I don't care, and she didn't care. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was one day we were going to practice agility, and the woman I work with forever, Cara, I bring Zasha with me, and I realized I didn't have a leash. You must always have a dog on leash all the time. Okay. So I put her vest on. She is by my side, and she's looking at me like, really? Really? Because she's not, now she's working. Cara comes over and says, I've never seen Zasha like this before. What's going on? I said, I got her vest. She said, hold on. She puts on the leash, vest comes off, puppy comes into shape, and boom. But
That's so cute.
she's just, and she was my lifeline. And when I would have seizures, which were rare, she was there. I mean, she would take the leash and she would shake me. And if I did not make it and I started to fall, that dog would get underneath me to keep me from hitting the ground hard.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. But last March, January, she had a seizure, and I started working to try to see what it was. And they progressively got worse. And then early March, she had a major seizure and didn't come out of it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So yeah,
But you gotta remember those good times though. It's one of the toughest things in the world losing a pet. It just like hits a special place in
family.
the heart.
Every relationship you have and everything they do, they know you, whether it's your cat or whether what it is. It's
Oh, it's
they.
so tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you gotta remember those good times, definitely. It seemed like a great relationship you had for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. At some point, just for my own sanity, it's not been a rush, but I'm going to probably need to, because what I do for a living and life and family, I get stressed and I get those little, and
Of course, yeah.
either going to have to take meds or get back to a service dog. And if I had a choice, I'd rather get another service dog.
Oh, of course, yeah. Definitely. Well, thank you for sharing that. I know it's a little personal, but I wanted to
No,
talk.
that's okay. She's a part of my life and always will be. And I miss her every day. I
Oh,
definitely do.
100%.
You'd be
Yeah,
sitting here right now and come up and say hi if she were here. So
yeah, it's something you never get over, definitely. But they're always with you for sure.
it's always that one that no matter what.
Yeah. Well, while we're getting a little deeper, I guess we'll probably wrap it up in maybe about 10 minutes here. But I wanted to ask you just personally, like, what would you say off the top of your head were your like three favorite projects you were ever involved with? Like if you had to pick, I know it's probably tough, but like the ones that like you think of that just bring you the most joy or you look back on the most fondly.
Did you ever see a movie called Stick? Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds, no, honestly, no.
One of
But
the bad guys was an albino, was played by my friend Dar Robinson.
Mhm.
And Dar has got this cable set up, which is what he designed, called the decelerator, where he lets go and he falls free fall, no airbag below him, people getting out of the way, and he's shooting the gun on the way down. If you Google Stick high fall, it's there.
Okay.
I always thought that was a spectacular stunt. We did this movie called Ballistic X versus Sever, and Lucy Liu, I don't know where she's hiding these weapons. They keep coming out of the blue, but she pulls out this kind of rocket launcher and she shoots me off the top of the tower, camera above me, and it followed me right to the roof of the car. And it was like a redo of that stunt, which I thought was one of the most spectacular stunts.
That's cool.
And that's a movie I'm proud of.
Love Burt Reynolds. We actually were over at in LA recently and we went to Hollywood Forever Cemetery and paid our respects to Burt's final resting place.
No, that's a whole history of just Hollywood royalty is in that cemetery. That and Forest Lawn.
Unreal. Yeah, I got to go to Forest Lawns next time, but we were walking around and it's so funny. We were walking around and we went by Gavin McGinnis's grave and then Emmett was like, "Oh, look, Cecil B. DeMille." And I'm like, "Oh, holy shit, Cecil B. DeMille." Like just like you said, royalty just all over the place there.
Powerful.
Darren McGavin is what I meant to say.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, continue with your story there.
Which one was it? I lost my.
Lucy Liu.
You were talking about your Lucy Liu, and then you were talking about.
So anyways, it followed me
top-
down, and it's very much like that one.
Yeah,
I
but
was
your top three
nominated-
favorites.
I was nominated for the Tourist Stunt Award, for that on 2 occasions: best overall work by a stuntman and best high work.
Nice.
And that was kind of cool. That's kind of the Oscar for stunt performers.
That's amazing.
I love working on The Changeling, which was a Clint Eastwood film.
I love that
yeah.
movie. That's a great movie.
Yeah, Angelina Jolie and
I did there's a whole chase sequence that got cut, and Clint actually apologized to me, and I said, "For God's sakes, it's your movie." I am in it to where we're trying to capture him. There's a whole rooftop chase sequence where we go roof to roof and jumping around, and I finally tackle him. We roll off together. I do. They did let me go in and see the editor, and he gave me the sequence, so I have it on.
That's
Cool.
awesome. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that is cool. That's a really cool sequence.
I'd love to see that someday. Yeah, that was such
I'll
a good.
post that. I'll put that on Instagram because I have a.
Good.
You really should. Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
cool.
that was so good. Yeah, it was her and what was his name? Jeffrey Donovan was in that, and Clint was. Oh, what a good movie. Yeah.
Oh, it was phenomenal. It was just phenomenal, and I really enjoyed working on that. Toxic Avenger holds a place in my heart. I can't say it's my favorite, but I enjoy working Hook was just exciting. I love Robin Williams. I worked on The World According to Garp. I sat with George Roy Hill for the longest time in the movie theater.
Wow.
They had a couple of the stunt guys hang out and fill up seats because they didn't have enough extras. I've done a lot of background work as a stuntman where I'm making big bucks but doing nothing.
That's the best.
We would talk about biplanes. He was a huge biplane fanatic. We talk about Redford and Newman. Robin was given distinct orders not to ad lib
Huh. On
Uh,
Hook or on Garp?
on Garp.
Okay.
Hook, I don't know, whatever he did. But he goes into the theater. He's looking for his wife. He calls out her name, and one of the patrons says, to be quiet or something. And then on that scene, Robin goes, "Fuck you!" And I hear, "Cut, Robin, back to one. Robin, no ad lib." Oh, and I thought, oh, that's really kind of cool. He wanted to stick with specifically the story and the way it was, and one of my favorite books. I love The World According to Garp. But I met him again. He didn't remember me but I don't think we met way back on Garp. But I really liked Hook. There was just magic working on a massive, you know, studio picture of that caliber. The boat, the
There's
entire
something special about that movie. I remember as a kid seeing that on the big screen and being just blown away. And to this day, I love that movie. I know it wasn't like, the critics' favorite, but what do they know? I'm like, to this day, I still love that movie.
a grown up Peter Pan that forgets everything and goes back, and it's just, and it's cool. And Dustin Hoffman is
Yeah.
Hook. I mean, I thought, and I'm looking at this thing like that was one that I wanted to work on. I was happy to work on Star Trek, but I wanted to work on Hook.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So those would be my top three. I would say would be the
They're
change.
great.
Yeah.
Incredible top three. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, let's do one more. Sometimes I like asking kind of off the cuff questions. What was your very first concert you ever went to, and what was the last concert you attended?
Very first was Doobie Brothers.
Ooh,
Nice.
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love the Doobie Brothers. Wasn't really a concert. It was at the last one I went to was at the Hard Rock Cafe. I'm a huge Liz Phair fan.
Oh, cool. Yeah, she's
I
great.
really like Liz Phair. I think she's ballsy. I think she crosses the line and she gets away with it. I like her music. So it was a concert, but it wasn't like a big concert. It was you had to get tickets and stuff to get to it. So that was probably the last one because my daughter went to the Taylor Swift Era Tour, but
Oh,
Classic.
take go there. No.
Not as cool as the
Hey,
Doobie
I
Brothers.
think she's phenomenal. I think that is one of the smartest businesswomen.
oh, for sure. Yeah.
Does some incredible stuff that
She's a billionaire now, isn't
Yeah.
she? Yeah.
but she can do no wrong. There's something about her that she's genuine. I mean,
Powerhouse. Yeah.
There's a reason people love her.
yeah.
Reason people love her. And then the very last thing, before we wrap it up here, Scott, I wanted to ask you about your time working on Dexter. I was a big fan of the show Dexter, and I saw you worked on quite a few episodes of Dexter.
I did, and a lot of them I worked on aren't all on the IMDb. I didn't learn about IMDb until later, and somebody was posting most of the credits on it for me. I didn't know about it. It's an interesting show. Truthfully, I got to be honest, I've been meaning to. I've never watched it. I think what an incredible concept.
Oh, you should. It's so good.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I worked a lot on The Office, which I loved.
Oh, really?
And I just started watching it and thought, this is a brilliant show. And I
I'm sure.
watched some of the later ones, but when you really get back into the character, the same with Dexter. I'd worked a lot of the shows. John Lithgow, I rigged him and made safety
Love
stuff.
Lithgow.
And
Love
Big
him.
Fire. Oh God, I ratcheted a guy back with this big explosion. I think Dexter sets up a gas explosion in a cabin.
Uh-huh.
That was cool because I had set up the fire and I set up the ratchet where I started designing new pneumatics, and the ratchet would pull him back violently, but decelerate him before he hit the ground. So it looked like he was hitting hard, but it was a soft landing because he right to the floor. So there was some cool stuff with it. I got to do some really neat stunts as far as designing. Once in a while, I get some indie stuff, nondescript. Most of the time, be safety and rigging.
That's awesome.
Most of the stunts were usually stunt doubles.
So
Really
cool.
cool.
Well, I had to talk about it because that was a show.
Oh, it's again, it's on my queue to watch because I've been meaning to, because I think it's just,
I think you'll like it. Yeah.
no, I know I will. I know the stories and I've always meant to. Um, so it's definitely on my queue to watch. But as I said recently, I got bored and I started watching The Office and went, wow.
That must have been fun to work on. What kind of stunts and stuff would they be?
Set a woman's hair on fire.
Okay.
Her Christmas party, Meredith gets too close to the candle and her hair goes.
Oh.
Stunt double doing that. Some falls for them. What else? Rigging. I rigged it so if they couldn't step off the top of this big whatever the truck was. It was a huge delivery truck. I think it was Steve Carell and Rainn Wilson were on top of it.
Okay.
That's cool.
So safety stuff. There wasn't a lot of action. I'll tell you a story, and they'll get pissed at me, but I don't care.
No, please do.
I'm really good at rigging. I started working with Cirque du Soleil. I designed some really good airbags for Cirque Show, and I ended up one of my closest friends, who's the most remarkable rigger. He mathematically could figure out something and change. That ship's in the wrong place. We move it here, it'll do this, and it would. He could literally see it.
Jeez.
I love this guy. His name is Tony. But Tony called me and said, we've opened the show in Los Angeles called Iris, and it's at, I think it was the Kodak Theater at the time, and changed the name to the Dolby Theater.
Uh-huh.
And he says, but I'm short riggers and I need riggers. And I said, well, I can't really work full time. I said, I can give you mornings. He said, that's fine. I just need someone that I can say I've got a rigger. And I came in and learned more about rigging, where you have to be certified. When you did something, it had to be approved and tested, and then you would get passed, and you had to be OSHA certified.
Okay.
I used to wonder why the special effects people hated when stunt guys would rig. Well, because they have to be certified and have to pass tests, and stunt guys just come in and rig.
Mhm.
One of the few certified stunt people that knows how to safely rig and also knows how to check for strength, tensile strength, and poles and weights and all these calibrations. Okay, that being said, my friend is doing The Office. He's covering for his father, and they've got Will Ferrell is now the boss. And there's a basketball scene where Will's going to dunk the basketball, and they've got him on wires. And he wants to borrow a vest to give for Will to wear. And I said, well, what are you doing? He says, well, we have to have him come up and do that. And I said, but special effects has requested that they rig it. And I said, okay. I said, well, you should really probably have a rigger on this. Well, we're not budgeted for it. I said, it's important you tell special effects they have a lead line on it. The reason is if he goes forward too much, he's going to swing into the backboard. So you've got to have it to where when he goes up, the other cable keeps him so that you can put him right above the basket, but he won't swing.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, not a problem. So then later on, I find out that my stunt coordinator friend got fired because Will swung into the backboard. Well, they didn't use a lead wire, and even though special effects rigged it and set it and didn't do it right, because sometimes even if you're certified, you do a lot of weight load testing, but you're not working with people.
Mhm.
So having a weighted bag hit it is one thing. Will was livid.
Sure. Yeah.
Stunt people get fired because it's a stunt. Doesn't matter. Special effects. And part of me goes, what part of lead wire did you not know? What part of this? Why did you not have a stunt safety rigger on the set? Even if I didn't rig it,
Yeah.
I could tell them, oh, we're gonna have to put a lead wire. And believe it or not, when I talk to special effects, they tend to listen. So they lost the job. I never worked on The Office again after that. I didn't work that day either.
Yeah.
But
So cool to be involved with it in some capacity, even though someone else made a mistake. I mean, it sounds like a cool experience,
oh yeah. So whatever that means, but yeah,
Yeah.
learn from mistakes.
That's
Well,
awesome.
wow. I didn't know a lot of this stuff when I first came in here, and I just wanted to say, thank you for everything you've done for film and for other stunt doubles. It's crazy to me, it's so cool.
Yeah, you've left just a huge impression on film history and television history, and you've saved a lot of lives too with your invention. So thank you for that. I'm sure that's gonna live on for as long as people are making movies.
Oh, cool. I appreciate it. It's fun. It's been fun.
I'm so glad. Yeah. Well, thank you. And let us know kind of what you have going on right now, or if you want anyone to follow any links or anything like that, I can
For the
drop
book,
I
yeah.
can drop them down below. Your Instagram I'll definitely put down below.
Probably won't be out for where I've got my publisher editor. By the way, the book will be in bookstores. It's not self-published.
Great, great.
Great.
There's two things I wanted. One was it not to be self-published. I wanted a publisher, and I got lucky.
Great.
I wanted it to be in bookstores. So, you know,
Great,
it
dude.
will be audio, it'll be EPUB, but it will probably be out next year because
Very exciting.
there's a lot of, I guess, promotions and publicity to do before that. So
That's
Cool.
great.
We'll be on the lookout.
Look
don't
forward to reading.
advertise it much. There's very few. So you've been told, and probably the however many thousands of people listen to your podcast will now know. But
All
That's
right.
great. That's great. And we'll drop your link to your Instagram down below. And thank you guys for watching. Remain unfazed. And Scott, thank you so much for all you do. And thanks for coming on the pod.
yeah, it's been a pleasure.
All right. Take care.
You too.